Okay.
Okay, I hereby call to order the meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment for Long Hill Township, September 3rd, 2024, at 7:35. Call to order and statement of compliance. Adequate notice of this meeting/hearing has been provided by posting a copy of the public meeting/hearing dates on the municipal bulletin board and website, by sending a copy to the Echo Sentinel and Courier newspapers, and by filing a copy of the municipal clerk. Standard board procedures. Any hearing conducted by the board is a quasi-judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Meeting cutoff. Announcement is made that as a matter of procedure, it is the intention of the Zoning Board of Adjustment not to continue any matter past 10:30 p.m. at any regular or special meeting/hearing of the board unless a motion is passed by members that then present to extend the meeting/hearing to a later specified cutoff time. Electronic devices. All in attendance are asked to mute cell phones or any electronic devices as to not interrupt the proceeding. Pledge of Allegiance. Would you lead us, Tom? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I know. What did we do there? All right. Roll call.
Mr. Aronio?
Here.
Ms. Brennan? Here. Mr. Giannakis is excused this evening. Mr. Flatley is excused this evening. Mr. Rosenberg may be coming, I'm not sure. Yet, but is currently absent. Mr. Watts is excused this evening. He just texted me and said that he had told me previously in the summer that he wasn't going to be able to make it tonight. Ms. Collins?
Here.
Vice Chairman Grosskopf?
Here.
Chairman Correct.
Here, and
We have a
Mr. Giannakis is also excused.
I'm sorry?
Mr. Giannakis is also excused.
I said that, didn't I?
You did, I didn't hear you, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I said that
She
after.
said
I didn't hear that, okay, sorry. Okay, now, before we get started with the applications, because we still don't know if,
Jonathan, I think,
Jonathan's
is coming, but
okay, all right. Well, we have something else to discuss. The bylaws, were you able to consolidate what we were talking about?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I sent out a copy of the
Yes.
revised version back on Friday.
And I think, Tom, you had some comments on them, because
Plenty of-
we had I recall we had a section there talking about attire, like no jeans and stuff. Did you leave that in there?
I don't
Because Tom doesn't
think I
remember.
ever removed that.
Okay.
I don't have the
think
old
you did
bylaws
either,
with me.
but I was, you didn't see it?
If I move it, I mean, I don't think that's in there.
Perhaps it was just something that I thought of after I'd already reviewed it, so.
Okay.
There it is, appearance.
We really need to mention that, though? I
Was that in the
mean,
old bylaws?
Ever been a problem with that?
Yeah, sometimes. Well, we want to make sure that people know when they come on the board and they read the bylaws, they know what's expected.
You're not
Instead of-
sure.
Chairman, I'm sorry, Jonathan said he'd come over now, so.
Oh, good, okay. Well, then we'll just talk about the bylaws.
Yep.
Was there a section left in about?
No, was that in the previous bylaws?
I think
Tom?
it was.
I don't recall seeing it.
You don't?
I have the old one.
I mean, I could easily slap something in here if there isn't something
Yeah,
I copied
we-
from already.
I could have sworn it was in there. Oh, boy.
Let me see if it's in the email that they sent.
Yeah, if you could put something in there about proper attire,
Yeah.
just that,
Do you want to add a,
Bikinis and gym shorts?
yes.
exactly,
Yeah.
a definition of
you
what's
know,
proper?
No one
Yes,
wants to
well,
see what
what's not proper. Board members are expected to dress in business casual.
Right.
No jeans, collared shirt, that type of thing, no sweat, no
When you go
t-shirts.
to a bar, they have to pay an entry fee, collared shirt.
There you go. If you dress wrong, you have to put $1 in the jar, just like a sweat jar. Yeah, and we have pizza at the end, yeah.
When was the last time you went to a bar that you had to pay an entry fee?
Never.
Come on now.
Flip flops?
Usually the short bars, and then you're wearing,
Exactly.
yeah.
So, Chris,
Yes.
I would suggest finding some standard language regarding business casual and not be
Yeah.
specific, because
Well,
you
we
don't
gotta-
wanna run
we-
afoul of,
Right, but we wanna say no jeans.
that's fine, no
And,
jeans.
and no,
And no
t-shirts. It's
like
gotta be
flip-flops.
collared shirt.
Right,
Right.
obviously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
$5 green old girl 2 weeks ago.
yeah, really? Oh, okay.
Oh, no, you, no doubt.
All right, other than that, was there anything else
Oh,
you,
a bunch.
I guess I would exempt any kind of religious-related attire as well.
Yeah.
If it's not already understood. Yeah, other than,
I have enough changes and corrections in here and discussion points that we probably want to take a look, see if we have time after. Some of it's just grooming, and then some of it are genuine.
okay.
all right, okay. Well, why don't you discuss that with him?
I can take it
And
offline.
then, Yeah,
It's something we always talk offline, and then,
yeah, I think that's a good idea.
That's
And
fine.
then we'll come back, next meeting and do it.
okay.
But, I just wanted that attire thing put in
Yeah,
there. so
I
we
got you.
can Do that.
For the next version of this, do you want me to maintain the bold and strike-throughs on
No,
this? or
no.
Cut all those
no,
out? Okay,
Yes,
so-
just
okay.
give us a clean version.
Okay,
Once you determine, Tom's,
We'll have some changes.
okay.
yeah.
So can we get the new changes?
Yes,
Strike through and
I agree with
bold?
Jerry.
yes, the new
Okay.
stuff.
Just
Anything
whatever's
that,
existing now,
yeah.
Okay.
Just the clean, and then whatever between
whatever.
Tom.
Right, okay,
And then we can.
thank you.
Do that.
All right, so Tom, the changes that Tom is gonna suggest, those are gonna be bold and strike.
Yes.
If you make any.
If there's no
changes, right.
strike throughs bold, you know,
Right.
he's not taking stuff
Right.
out bold, but he's taking
Understand.
things out to
Yeah.
strike through, okay?
Yeah.
All right,
Okay,
what else can we, do before
how else can we burn some midnight oil here?
Jonathan gets here?
Not much.
Housekeeping?
What's coming up next meeting?
2 more applications,
2, okay.
Residential, commercial?
Is
and they're
that-
both impervious coverage.
Is that the swimming pool on Rolling?
There's a swimming pool, and there's an addition.
Oh,
Can you
okay.
repeat what you said? Is somebody's coverage? I missed that.
The next 2 applications in front of the board will be 2 applications for impervious coverage.
Oh, impervious coverage. Thank you.
One is a swimming pool, one is an addition over existing impervious coverage to which they're already over impervious coverage.
Okay.
So they want more impervious
Mm.
coverage.
No, actually, they just want to build over,
What's already there?
correct.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you.
Oh, they're not really
In the
increasing
same-
it.
So they're not
Okay.
adding
Six or
anything,
seven
right.
of them.
In
They're
the same
just-
footprint,
Right,
Yeah.
or are they
No,
expanding?
they built this, so on the rear of the house, they built like a huge patio.
Yeah, yeah.
So where they want to put this addition is
over the
ultimately
patio.
over that patio.
But it's already impervious.
Correct.
Right, so.
So what are they
It's
doing?
already, so they're not expanding the impervious coverage, but they're over what they're allowed
Right.
for the
And once they're
zone.
over, they gotta come for.
Thus, they can't do
for-
anything without a variance.
Yeah,
Right.
once you're
So
over.
they're existing non-conforming use is what
Right.
we're saying.
Correct.
Not use,
But if-
existing non-conforming, non-pervious.
Are they
Impervious.
proposing a net increase in impervious?
No,
Yeah.
but they're
Same.
already over.
A net increase, like,
Like they're gonna be increasing the amount of.
They're over the lot coverage already,
Right,
So that automatically
Without a
puts it
variance.
before us.
correct.
right, okay,
so they need a variance.
okay.
Okay, so we discussed that.
They're begging for forgiveness instead of permission.
Right, I see,
Yeah.
okay.
There he is.
But forgiveness
Yeah,
is do
Assuming
something.
it's not lawfully,
All right,
Let the
the
record show
presumption,
Mr.
Where's-
Rosenberg has arrived. Thank you,
especially
Mr.
since we haven't
Rosenberg.
seen the
you
substance
wanna
of
get
the
his,
application.
do you have his name tag out?
We haven't go through the package
Oh, yeah.
yet.
Let me get-
We gotta get your name
I've just
tag
heard
so you're
about it for the
official.
first
Oh, you can
What
sit
do I
over
know?
there. It's easier because we already have a seat set up there, so, with the stuff.
I'll go get you the stuff.
We already have the, material there.
Better side.
Yes.
Some hot water.
I'll go get you stuff.
So
Means more than that.
You wanna take away the one
Oh,
that's
you
there?
can use that, yeah, because
Yeah.
he's not coming. Yeah.
Right, right, so,
Works for me.
there you go, it's already there. Okay,
They're switching places.
so now that we have everybody here, good. Would you swear in the witness, please, and swear our experts in?
I think we still need to announce the case, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, that's true, yes, okay, sorry.
No problem.
I lost track of what our thing was we doing here. All right, we have the roll call. Now, the first application is a use variance carried from 8/20/2024, block 10104, lot 5.01, zone R2, 300 South Northfield Road, application number 24-10Z. Teresa Gallo. Applicant proposes to convert a previously approved senior suite to a two-family mother-daughter suite. Okay, the applicant is present. Okay. Do you have any witnesses or just yourself?
Just myself.
Okay. Swear the witness in and our experts, please.
Real quick, Mr. Chairman, just on jurisdiction notice and stuff, I'll just make a quick
Yes,
point.
sorry.
You guys may recall at our last meeting, we announced that we were carrying this application to this evening, last meeting being on August 20th. What had happened was the applicant had effectively delivered the
Pleasure.
notices to people owning property within 200 feet of the subject property, but the notice wasn't published on time by the Echo Sentinel. So unfortunately, she had to republish in the newspaper, and I can confirm that that had the right content and was timely served. So
Okay.
the board has jurisdiction to hear and decide the case in my legal opinion.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
that with that predicate out of the way, Ms. Gallo, I need you to raise your right hand, as well as our board professionals. Do all of you swear or affirm, just get my microphone, that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, great. They are
Great.
duly sworn, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Ms. Gallo, I remember from the last time when we approved your senior suite. Would you explain in detail what's changed and the reason for needing the changed in category?
Yeah, so I'm not looking for a two-family, I don't want it, like no rental, because
Mm.
my parents want there, I would not rent it. I just wanted to make it a legal mother-daughter instead of having to remove the kitchen. I did not know that that was possible when I inquired several years ago. I was told that I could put a senior suite on because their health was failing, and that's what I was instructed to do. If I knew there was an option to apply for a mother-daughter instead, I would have, because removing the kitchen and getting all that, having all that expense, is not a financially savvy move to put something in. Like, kitchens are very expensive. And so I spoke with Deb, and she said, well, you can apply for a mother-daughter then, so you won't have to remove the kitchen.
Okay, but what's changed in the actual use of it? Who's living there now or who?
Oh, nothing, my parents are living there still.
Oh, they're still living there.
Yes, I am taking
Okay.
care of them, yes, oh,
Okay,
absolutely.
so there's no change in who's,
There's no change,
Okay.
I just don't wanna have to remove the kitchen. I feel like there are other individuals who take care of their parents and would love to move into a suite that could accommodate their needs, like it's accommodating mine and my family's right now, without having to go through 2 years of permits and construction and hearings and things, and just to be able to have somebody use it the way we're using it, or even have myself move into it and
in the
have
future,
my children,
right?
live in the house.
Okay, so what you're proposing is that you're still using it in the same manner. You just want the classification to be mother-daughter as opposed to a senior suite.
Right, so when they're
Okay.
no longer there, occupying the suite, that I could have the option to sell the house and market it as a legal mother-daughter, so that somebody can.
Or
use it.
convert it to a use that you could have it as a mother-daughter, as you said. Perhaps you would,
Or
yeah.
I could stay
Yeah.
there. And I think, and I might be wrong, that if my parents did pass, I could move in there if a family member moved into my home.
I believe so, yeah, because it would still be a senior suite.
Yeah.
But in this case, you want it to be more legally classified as a mother-daughter.
Yes, because when you sell the property, if I no longer have the need for the senior suite, I can't sell it as a senior suite, because the restriction is
Right.
only for me. So I would like for somebody to be able to do the goodness that I'm doing for my family.
Can I ask a question of our
Sure.
board
Yes,
attorney,
please.
or Liz, if you know?
Sure.
So with a mother-daughter designation, are there restrictions on renting for, profit to a non-family member? For example, could it be used as an apartment?
It would have to be permitted, Liz, should hop in at any point. It would have to be permitted by use variance, because then it would become a a
Family,
two-family dwelling.
yeah.
at that
Right,
point.
that's what I'm asking.
Right.
There's a distinction, right?
Right.
So it's not like
Well,
Ms. Gallo would sell it and the new buyer could rent it as, a rental property to a non-family member. Is that true or not true?
I guess it depends what the extent of relief is, and also what the distinction is between a mother-daughter and a senior suite. As far as in my experience, they've been synonymous with each other.
Yeah,
So,
What is
yeah.
our ordinance?
Yeah, can I just step in? All right,
Please.
so
I
that,
was
yeah.
waiting for you.
Yeah, okay, so senior suite, we don't have a definition for mother-daughter suite,
Right.
so it would continue to be a senior suite. The difference is there are regulations for senior suites in our ordinance that have things like when the person no longer lives there, you have to
Rip out.
rip it out, or, you know, you can't have it anymore, and there's other parameters. And so what happened when Ms. Gallo got the original approval, as part, and this is consistent with the ordinance, and it's part of, probably even the deed, but it's certainly part of the resolution, which is just that.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think, if I'm not speaking incorrectly, what she's looking for today is to not have to put all the expense in, of putting in a senior suite, when then, in, you know, a future, long in the future, if it becomes vacant, or, you know, that, or she has to leave or move, that she would then have to rip up the suite. So I think it's not, I wouldn't say we're changing, the use necessarily, because I think it's still a senior suite,
Right.
but I think what we're saying is she is looking for relief to not have to
Rip out
have
perfectly
that
good
termination. Yes, and so that it would be in perpetuity.
right.
The ordinance does permit sort of upstairs, like apartments, but they have to be specifically for affordable housing, you know, and so, which is not what Ms. Gallo is looking to do here. So
That would be a separate application.
that would be a separate application. It would be relief under a separate section of the ordinance, and, you know, that brings up a whole bunch of other legal issues with having to register that it's an affordable unit. So really, what she is looking to do is get relief from this one section of the ordinance that makes you, you know, rip it up, and it also would be an amendment to her earlier application, where the board granted relief contingent upon the termination of the suite.
If I may, I have a question. Then if I sold the house, would the new owners have to apply to be able to use it as a senior suite? So, or would that be restriction being removed so that it would be able to be sold as a senior suite, a house with
Mother-daughter.
a usable senior suite?
That is a legal question.
Yeah.
I,
Okay.
I've never encountered a situation like this before, because it's like, I mean, you're telling me she's effectively trying to continue what is a use that's already permitted, but you're
It's-
seeking a D1, so it's like,
I think it's
Right.
essentially a conditional use variance.
Right.
it is and it isn't. It's not a specifically
Right.
Because it's not-
specified conditional
because of the
use, but
way-
it's a condition of the use, yeah, which
right.
I know there's
Right,
like.
no, so it has to do with the way that our ordinance defines the senior suite. It's
Right.
not a particular conditional use.
Right.
So.
But I
so
think
you're
what's
essentially
more-
amending the prior approval.
Amending
Yeah,
the chart
she-
to allow, but I think the concern is
Is it gonna turn into a rental?
a two-family home.
Yeah.
Is it, yeah,
And I think if you call it mother-daughter, you put the proviso that the people have to be related that live in, you know, you could have two, it doesn't have to be older person, younger person, but they at least have to be related.
they have to continue to be senior members of the household.
They
That's what the
have-
ordinance.
I think, sorry, so the way it's defined in our ordinance, it's a senior member of the household.
Right.
So I think.
But if we change it to mother and daughter, it would still be that.
But, what
Will
if
be.
it becomes her father?
I
Okay.
think,
I mean-
that's the answer for us
Yes.
here.
Well, I have a question/comment as the zoning officer. Do you want to swear me in as the zoning officer?
Might as well. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please go ahead.
Because of the way our code is written, and Liz and Chris, of course, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but the way it has been looked at from myself and the predecessors before me as far as zoning officers in the township of Long Hill, because the code allows for a senior suite and an accessory apartment
Right.
deeded without variances. Senior suite gets removed if it's no longer a senior suite. The accessory apartment is deeded for affordable housing. Therefore, if someone wants to make it, we don't have a classification for mother-daughter, so essentially
Right.
what that is, it becomes a two-family house.
Exactly.
Because
Understand
under the
before.
zoning laws, when I look at, and any other zoning officer looks at or reviews an application, that somebody is putting in a kitchen, a full kitchen, we consider that to be
A
an
two-family.
apartment.
Right.
So therefore, I understand the class, I mean, to call it a mother-daughter, but essentially what it becomes in the zoning world, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, is a two-family. Because if the property then is sold,
That's my
it's
fault.
not deeded as an accessory and it's not deeded as a senior suite, therefore it's a two-family.
Right.
So maybe we should bring that up to the planning board to look at that and make a definition of mother-daughter suite, that we can do that.
You could absolutely do that.
Why don't you put that as one of our
The annual notes.
annual
You got it.
report, because
What would be the
that,
point of
Well,
having a
no,
mother-daughter and a senior?
I mean,
Yeah.
the,
Doesn't
the
make
term
sense.
mother-daughter suite is somewhat antiquated. Senior suite is more appropriate.
That's right.
yeah, but the way it's written in our, it's kind of restricted. We're trying to unrestrict it in a sense that you can,
Yeah.
you know, so I'm trying to figure out a way of,
Well, I think
So
that.
can I ask a question? Because I
Yeah.
think this is just, we're just spinning a downward spiral, and I have no idea what's going on. And it's very simple, right? She already has approval for what people are calling a senior suite.
Right.
Okay, so what's the problem? Did somebody come to you
So
from the
I wanna
zoning
remove the
department and ask you to cease that, or what's going on here? Like,
Nothing at all, it's just there's a deed restriction that says I have to remove the kitchen if they're no longer there. And I would like to.
And you just did this construction over the last few years,
2 years, yeah.
and your parents are living with you, and everything's
Yes.
going well.
the
But in
construction-
fairness, it's part of the prior application and the resolution, so it was
Well,
known
that's,
before the
I'm kind
construction.
of going down
Right.
that path. So
Right.
you knew when you did this construction that that was the terms, that you had a senior suite, and
Yes,
that,
and I didn't know if there was another option, and when I asked.
well, apparently there is not another option.
Well, when
This
I
is,
came in and asked Deb, I said, can I make this a mother-daughter? And she said, yes, you fill out an application, which is what I did and why I'm here.
so now I'm understanding that we don't have a section of our ordinance that's calling it a mother-daughter.
Correct.
So there is no other option. She does not have
Correct.
another option.
No.
What she's doing is permitted,
Right.
and according to our current ordinance,
I mean,
she does not need a mother-daughter because it doesn't exist.
That's right. She's
So,
doing
I'm
what's
saying, why are
permitted,
we
but
here?
because what is in our ordinance is if at some point the senior suite is no longer occupied, you theoretically have to.
But can we deal with it then?
No,
Do you
well,
plan
I
on
think that's why.
Moving
that's
sometime
why she's here.
soon.
yeah,
That's
so,
why she wants to do it now.
Time-
Because if
time
they're
out.
no longer here, and I no longer need it, then I have to rip the kitchen out unless I come back here and do this all over again.
But do you plan on that happening soon? Because you just said before your children might be here.
Does the timing matter?
when are they going? Come on.
Or not, or them moving.
The direction I was given that this
Yeah.
could be done, and then fill out the application and pay the fee and the escrow, and I did all that. No.
The
thinking that
likelihood, I
maybe
can't speak
could
for this
do it.
board or future boards or precedent or anything like that, but the likelihood of someone making you rip your kitchen out after your parents pass away is probably not very big, especially
It's a
considering.
matter.
That's incorrect,
It's,
Mr. Aronio.
I don't think it's,
Because what
Regardless,
we-
at
They
at
could.
this, at this point, there's no, there's no,
It
There's
doesn't
no
have to do
remedy.
with the board, it has to do with the zoning on the flip side, that a senior suite is certified every year.
Yeah.
If somebody
You
comes
can
to
apply
us,
for zoning relief whenever you want, just so you know that.
time out. Is this one way to maybe think about it? Liz, I'm going to put this on your shoulders, unfortunately. With this, could we maybe treat this as a bulk variance in the sense that they're trying to seek relief from one of the conditions of 124.8, senior suites?
Or you- yeah.
It's not really, the use isn't really changing, it's just,
Well,
Well, the condition, the
Yeah.
use is permitted per certain conditions, and what we've treated
right.
other things like upstairs housing in the downtown zones, we've treated as use variances.
Okay, so it'd still be a use variance.
Yeah.
I think the nature of the senior suite is something you want to preserve
Right.
in the prior approval. So I think the cleanest way I see it is, it's a request to amend the prior approval.
To alleviate the need
For
to
the
rip out the
relief from
kitchen.
the
Yeah.
specific deed restriction of removing
The kitchen.
the kitchen. And as Deb noted, there's an annual recertification, so there is a zoning enforcement check on the senior suite. And the issue is not wanting in timeliness to have to rip it out. You'd rather have that relief discussed tonight and voted on. And that way you have some other, I would think, some other comparable mechanism into the deed or otherwise with the resolution that provides, provides the check and balance for the board to remove the deed restriction and ensure that it doesn't become a two-family. Because that's really, I think, what we're struggling with. Is
Right.
how do we make sure that the next person that buys it doesn't just start renting it? And I think the answer is the annual zoning recertification.
Right. Could we also, another way to potentially think about it, I'm just throwing out things for discussion, treat this as a D1 use variance request for a two-family home with a stipulation or condition that the secondary unit, we'll call it for lack of a better term, would only be occupied by a senior member of the same household of the main unit. Does that make sense?
May I interrupt? Can we regulate that? Because it sounds like
The ordinance
there's a
can.
process to regulate the existing, but that's something new.
Yeah.
And does the zoning enforcement
It is.
department have a policy and a procedure to do that?
I was less
Kind of
under
my
the
depth.
understanding, and maybe
Yeah.
Ms. Gallo, you can elaborate further, but that you said if ever you wanted to sell the house, you wouldn't want to be restricted by it being a senior suite?
I wouldn't be able to sell it as a legal senior suite because the deed restriction would get removed
Right.
if I sell the house.
Right.
If we're not there anymore.
Once the property's
I
sold.
still want to remove the deed restriction and the kitchen. So I want to be able to sell it as a usable senior suite where
Mhm.
somebody who has the need that I need would be able to use it without me ripping off the kitchen and then them coming.
And putting it back
having
in.
Can I ask another question? So every time somebody that had approval for a senior suite property that has those conditions is sold in our town,
Mhm.
they have to rip out
Yes.
really?
That
Yeah.
is a little ridiculous.
That's silly.
But
That
It's
is
where it happened.
downright
I-
insane.
Well,
Sure, if you want to take a look.
I didn't make the rules. We
I
just
know, I'm just
follow
saying,
them.
Section 3, C down there.
Well, and that's
Crazy.
why I wanted to, like, can I amend this rule, because I don't want to, I mean.
That's what we're trying to
Yeah,
figure
we're trying to
out.
get creative here.
Because we want to make sure, mi-
Once it's not that particular.
right, Ms. Scott, we're trying to make sure that whatever we do tonight
Your approval.
is legally binding and enforceable. Because if we do something that isn't,
So
it tends to, it won't be enforceable.
And it's going to hurt you in the long run
Yeah.
too, God forbid.
So,
Something happens.
Or somebody's going to use it.
Unfortunately, you know, this is one of the things that we're going to bring up on our annual report to the planning board, and maybe they can modify that so it isn't so ridiculous where, you know, you can't continue the senior use,
You would think.
you know, because, you know,
A permit after that.
yeah. Yeah, there should be
I hate
some,
permits and I hate government, but
Yeah.
you should
What if the next
really
person
just
doesn't
have it
have
as a permit
Reach in the
yeah,
after it's established.
yes, no, you're right. You're right, because it's kind of silly to have to sell a house and rip something out when somebody else could be using it and put it back in. It's almost nonsensical.
Well, Ms. Gallo's point is that she would like somebody to
Yes.
take over and have a senior suite already built in.
Right,
But it has to be family specific.
I'm so sorry, even if the buyer who previously approves to buy it says, oh, I'm interested in that senior suite, this is why I'm interested in the property.
we would have to
still
first
be
come
able-
before us, before
That's
the
crazy.
closing.
Yeah.
Then before closing, he would have to come before us to get another permission, so she wouldn't have to rip it out.
think of it, a good way to think of it is,
I'm just saying, yeah,
so most things we handle at the board,
Yeah,
right? We discuss the approval riding with the land.
Right.
yeah,
And this is a rare instance of essentially the approval.
riding with the owner,
Boy,
The own-
I
yeah.
agree
It
with
rides
that.
with the ownership and the
Yeah.
particulars of that situation.
yeah,
Right.
which is
To
unusual.
accommodate a senior living suite
Right,
for those people inhabiting it at the time.
Yeah.
right.
And so I think the struggle becomes the ability to maintain that after that changes and in a change of ownership, the next person being in a position where the township can enforce it.
Right.
Or I'm coming back to what Chris, you said earlier, which is that we look at this as, let's just not look at it as a senior suite. Let's
Right.
look at it as an accessory apartment that's not deed restricted for affordable and not deed restricted for seniors. And the board evaluate whether that makes sense, given this location, given this property. And maybe Ms. Gallo can provide us, I mean, she did probably in 2022, but just give us some more information about your neighborhood, the block that you live on, what's surrounding your property and surrounding the senior suite and how big your property is, things like that, to sort of talk about it, and maybe the board can evaluate it in that respect, because then,
But isn't that then a different application? Because then the request is to make this a legal two-family home in a
Right, it was-
single-family
no.
residential area.
Right.
it is, but she came in for a D1. So it's
She
a
knows.
D1 use,
She's not-
for a D1 use. I mean,
Okay.
so it's sort of how
So
are
even
we
though it's
looking at the
different,
use?
okay.
Can we
Yeah.
look at this as not a mother-daughter, not a senior, but just an accessory apartment.
That's then conditioned
Yeah, I mean,
for,
none of the utilities are separate.
Right.
Okay,
It's not, there's no separate utilities.
so it has to be somebody in the same household, again. Yeah,
Would
Or
it
they
be
have an
possible to
agreement, yeah.
stipulate, related people to live in, if that were a condition of approval, could that
that,
be
that
stipulation?
it's a member of the household?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, maybe that's how to look at it.
maybe,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think where the applicant's trying to get to is to maintain it as a senior suite, but without the requirement that these things, you know.
that it be the
that
person currently inhabiting it.
Right.
Right. No.
Well, yeah, that.
No. I think we want to keep that, right? We would, I believe you would want to you know, when you would market this house, presumably, correct me if I'm wrong, you would want to market it as, hey, this is somewhere where your parents can live if, you know, they want to stay with you.
Family of the same household. but-
Correct.
But the way our ordinance is written, it basically implies that if there's a change of the
Ownership.
unique situation of the people living in the house.
Right.
Currently.
And that's the,
That's the relief.
that's
we
what we
would
need to
grant.
give them relief from. And the
But I-
question.
But I
right.
also, maybe, and maybe I'm opening up a Pandora's box,
Oh,
but maybe
please.
you don't restrict it to seniors, because
Yeah.
let's say you have a disabled adult child.
Right, right.
And
yeah.
you want
Right.
them to live in your house, so then they're a member of the household.
Yeah.
For the household, yeah.
But
But
they're.
they want their separate kitchen,
Right.
they want to be in.
They- right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's where we have to, have the
So-
ordinance looked at.
Yeah,
Variance,
right.
and then
So we would be treating this as, the proposed use here is a senior suite still, but a senior suite that doesn't require abandoned, I guess not abandonment, or
Abandonment of it.
vacation.
Vacating it.
Would that be a way to kind of, I know it's a little choppy, but, you know,
All conditions of the senior use must be continued except for that section C. How
right,
about
that's
something
certainly a
like
way,
that?
right. It's an easy way to write
Inhabited
it.
by a member of the same family.
Right.
Right.
Right, and then if the
All
next
other conditions
person
except for C.
needs to meet it again, then they have to come back
Right.
before us again.
Mm-hmm.
We can make it specific to,
Well, does it even become
No.
a senior suite or a suite anymore? Or is it just like
No,
a
it's-
part of the house at
I
that point?
wouldn't, I would tend not to call it a senior suite, because you have a
Right.
definition for that.
Right.
So
Right.
what you're looking at is a D1 use variance, that you're then crafting the conditions.
I think that would be a better way to
that's
look at
right.
it. Because then they won't fall under that ordinance.
Right,
So it
and-
becomes
and-
like an
In-family.
in-family suite.
Okay,
Right.
that's a
Something
good
new.
term.
Yeah, I like
Let's-
that.
Let's coin that term.
Right?
In family suite, I think that's right, and we don't want to call it an accessory apartment,
Right.
because then it's like, oh, now you have to be affordable,
Right.
you know,
Right,
and
definitely.
so.
We don't want
In-family
the
suite.
conditions currently, the senior suite to continue?
No, not, because then she'd have to rip out the
No, I
kitchen.
said with the exemption of C, like,
Oh, I mean, we
remove
could-
section C, but
Right.
everything else is the same.
Right, there's other conditions, A, the
But we're
suite.
not calling it
Yeah.
a senior suite, though.
Right, but I think what Jerry was still, even if
Yeah.
we're calling it something else, those seem like basic
Yes,
conditions would still,
yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah,
So maybe,
Yeah, everything else would still apply.
Right.
you
Yes.
say
except for
all
they don't have
else
to rip it
apply,
out.
Right.
all else provisions in this section apply, except for
Except
C.
for, right. Okay.
Essentially, the amendment we're making is to provide the use variance instead
To
of.
continue, right.
Specifically being tied to senior suites.
Okay.
Right.
Sounds good, okay.
And what would happen if somebody else moved into the house? And I'm not planning on moving. and-
No, I'm saying that you wouldn't have to rip out the kitchen.
Okay.
I believe they would have, depending on how they want to use it, would they have to come back before us or not? No, they wouldn't, no.
It would ride with the land at D1.
Yeah, it would go with the land. So,
I mean,
yeah,
unless
you'd
it
be
was
good.
found that they were doing something illegal.
Right, unless they were
renting
doing
it to
something
college
else.
students,
We
Yeah.
can still have
The
the
conditions
annual,
we still have,
we
right?
can still have the annual zoning
Right, the
permit
annual
requirement.
zoning
Yeah.
recertification would be appropriate.
Yeah,
And essentially, if it's inhabited by a member of the family.
right.
And if it's not inhabited, it remains vacant, that's not an issue.
Right,
It's
no,
just
no, right.
Underutilization
Right.
of the property.
Is not a problem. It's just that they can't go advertise it on the street and get some stranger to move in.
And there's a provision that limits the size to 650
Right,
square feet.
right.
So
Yeah.
that in itself, it's not a two-family.
Mm.
You know, I mean, you're not gonna get in a whole nother, I mean, hopefully,
No, no, I know.
yeah, it
You
could.
never
And then,
know.
and then no more than 2 persons shall
Yeah.
occupy.
yeah.
All right.
Oh, that's a good way to do
Oh,
it,
yeah, you can't.
yeah.
Yeah, that's, yeah,
Yeah.
kind of cramped.
God knows what people do nowadays.
Hey, man, it's a rough housing market out there. You gotta do
Yeah,
something.
right. All right, well, that's,
sale on
I
bunk
think
beds.
through all this, we crafted something that actually works. Thank you.
Okay. So,
Now the board attorney just has to draft.
Yeah, I
God,
know.
it's gonna be a-
yeah.
It's gonna be a project.
Yeah.
Well, let's just be clear on where we are and what is gonna be voted on, I guess. And anyone, feel free to stop me at any point. I think the way to summarize this is the applicant is seeking a D1 use variance to permit an in-family suite, right? We're gonna call it that. With the stipulation or conditions that all, actually, I'm gonna list them all
And
individually.
Chris, can we just pause there?
Please.
Like, we came up with this in-family term. Can you go back after this and see if there's a legal definition for what we are seeking
Yeah.
to do here?
Or at least
Everyone has
define
the
it as we
understanding.
want it
Right.
defined,
Yeah.
yeah.
Something in case law or whatever, but, you know, so that
Right.
we're actually
Sure. Yeah,
using
we got,
proper
yeah,
terminology.
there probably is.
Yeah, I
somewhere.
have to think that there is. I mean, I know of at least
There is?
3 senior suite type deals in town that were sold recently as that. So there has to be a way to
Yeah.
do it.
When I was doing a little bit of research on this before this meeting, I came across the term, like a secondary suite, which kind of, doesn't imply any kind of familiar relationship with that. Obviously, I think what we're aiming at here, and what the applicant has even indicated, is that we want to keep it the same family.
Right.
So-
So we're molding those two.
Right.
Whatever the terminology is that we use
Yeah,
to
I can
limit how
kinda
many
spell
people
it
can
out.
even live in a
Right.
house based on familial relationship, right? I think that that's probably,
Right. Well, the conditions that would still apply would be the other portions of the senior suite ordinance, which
Right.
would be that,
Yeah,
no greater than 650 square feet, no more than 2 people occupying the suite. There would be an annual certification by the code enforcement officer to ensure that, I guess, that the dwellings being, the secondary unit, I'm just gonna call it that, is being, in-family suite, is being occupied by
no more than 2 people.
no more than 2 people, and is being occupied by somebody in the same household as
Right.
the primary portion of the
Yeah.
residence. Right, okay.
So just to be clear, it is over 650 square feet, right?
What is it?
892?
Oh, was that what
Was
was
it-
permitted?
is
Per
that-
prior approval.
That was
Okay.
per
Yeah.
prior,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, then put that in there.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It was 879 permit. I
Right.
don't want to hold her to 879.
But I didn't know.
You know, that
Okay, thank
it not expand from what was granted, I guess, in the earlier
Yeah.
approval.
Oh, boy, that's a tricky one.
You got this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll figure it out. All right. Well, I think we know where we're trying to go. So basically, I'm just looking at the ordinance right now. We're excising C, that's that, upon the sale or transfer of the property or upon vacation of the premises, the suite shall be removed and the residence converted. We're not doing that.
Right.
Now, D is a little interesting. At the time of the establishment of the senior suite, a new deed shall be recorded in the Morris County Clerk's office containing
you
a
do that?
restriction.
I did.
Right, to the effect that if the suite is not occupied and used as envisioned by this subsection, it shall be removed and the resident shall comply with all requirements for a single-family detached dwelling applicable to the zone in
So
which
we
it
have
is
to,
located.
we have to move that?
no,
No?
it'll still
No.
be applicable. And I think that we should keep that because then that will restrict the
Right.
next
Oh.
person
Well-
as well.
A deed restriction, but it should be replaced.
Right.
Yeah,
It should be.
it's a,
Amendment or whatever.
yeah, but the deed restriction can be, what's the word I'm using? Can be transferred. It doesn't
Yeah.
end with that.
That's the
That
issue
deed
with the
restriction
current.
can be transferred to the next deed.
Right.
So you should put that in there, that section D can be transferred to the new deed.
Right.
So I would have to retitle the house.
Well, if somebody else wanted to buy it, they would just buy it and put that same deed restriction in their deed.
Oh,
Right.
Well, I think it has
Well-
to go in now as an amended deed.
Well,
It
that's just it,
does.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right,
Because it has the language about removal.
right. So
Yeah,
yes, you
yeah.
would have to change that
Yeah.
in your deed.
Right, it'd
Because
be,
right now, you can't sell it without
Right.
giving it out.
right,
So you could do that, just deed it to yourself, and,
right,
change.
right, and the deed restriction to be amended to, basically to be, hold on. It would contain a restriction to the effect that if the suite is not occupied and used as envisioned by this approval, as opposed to this subsection, which it says in the ordinance,
Correct.
it shall be removed and the resident shall comply with all the requirements, yada, yada,
Right,
yada.
right.
So,
So-
okay.
You're removing the hook of if sold.
Right,
if sold.
exactly,
Right, so it can be transferred to another owner.
right.
That's what your fear is, so that's what we're trying to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
So, once, if this does get approved, once this resolution is done, then you can take that wording and put in your deed, in the new one.
Right.
Okay, so, Anybody have any other questions based on what he just said?
No, I like it.
Yeah.
Hi,
okay.
I have
Yes,
one
go
question,
ahead.
just because I wasn't,
That-
Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I wasn't at the, your prior, when you came to the board. Are these two, is the only way to access this second suite is through the out, for this deck? They're not connected in any way? You, they're internally, I'm saying, you can. there's
It's
a-
part of
there's
your
a do-
house, correct?
There,
As you walk from theirs to yours.
so
It's a
there-
door.
There's a door in between, though, right?
There's a door in between, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
But-
I understand.
No, there is, it goes right into the kitchen and.
Yeah.
okay. But that kind of differentiates it, I think. I mean, I
Yeah.
understand you can always lock a door, but I would think that that also makes it additionally seem like it's part of the
Um,
house and not rentable necessarily if there is access from the inside to the
Right.
other.
I mean,
Right.
I would recommend specifically keeping that in.
Mm-hmm.
That internal architectural
Yeah, okay,
component
put that
of
in
door
there, yeah.
between makes it part of the same.
Yeah, more cohesive, with
In,
that,
yeah,
yeah.
in-family
Okay.
suite.
It's more palatable, but Jonathan raised a good point when he said you could always lock the door.
Right. But
Yeah,
at
but a
least,
door is a door, not a wall.
right.
It is.
It's more, together when it's a door than, you know, it's not where there's no access at all, which is
Understood.
totally like a separate apartment.
So that'd be
Okay.
another condition.
Yeah, that there must continue to be an access door
Internal
between,
access,
in- internal access.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Somebody can't wall it off. Yeah.
Right. So basically, I guess what I'm kind of proposing, quote unquote, is, treat it as a D1 use for an in-family suite. We're going to define the in-family suite to be, members of the same household, right? Instead of me referencing 124.8, that's the senior suite ordinance directly.
No, just take the
I'm
language.
going to, exactly, I'm just going to
Yeah.
copy the language as conditions
Yeah.
that we've all just discussed here and apply those. And I think,
Yeah.
we
sounds
got to
good.
get, yeah, okay. I think it's the
Sounds
best way
good.
to handle it under the circumstances, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. Any other questions?
Members of the public?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I know. I just want to make sure we have any other questions. You have any questions?
No, do you want me to ask some proof
Yes.
questions?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Oh, sure, please, yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
All right, so, in this instance, is it your testimony that your site is particularly suitable for the use that you're seeking the variance for?
Yes.
And do you think that there will be, by allowing this suite to exist in perpetuity, so to, with conditions, that it will have any substantial adverse impacts on your neighbors, or or the town?
No, speak up in your microphone.
No, I don't
Okay.
think it will.
And with regard to, it's not permitted in the ordinance, and so is it incorrect to ask you, or ask, the use is so specialized and that maybe it's not a permitted use, so that the board can really take a close look at the specific circumstances of each case where somebody would want to do this. And that may be why it's not permitted as a blanket permitted use across the ordinance. Sorry, because that's a leading question. But do you understand what I'm asking?
You can ask a leading question.
Yeah, I know. Do you understand what I'm asking? Which is that, no, I know.
That
So-
we're giving you relief that is tailored to your needs, and someone else can't say, well, you gave her the relief, we want the same relief. This is being tailored to your needs and your specific use of the property. That your neighbor can't come in and say, well, you gave my neighbor the same thing I wanted.
Right, and so, it's a use that maybe we wouldn't want to have permitted across the board in Long Hill, but in this specific circumstance, the board would you say that your lot and your property and your home
Lends itself to that.
lends itself, thank you, to this use?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, I don't think you can even tell that I put on a senior suite. You drive by, I don't know.
Every day.
I walk by it every day, I see
Yeah.
it.
Do you too?
Yeah.
So you really can't tell.
No.
I've noticed, let me just ask you, your property and its size and shape has not changed?
No.
Okay, just wanted to make sure, because people do. And nothing else about your property as far as the neighbor's access or ability to see into your property or view what's going on has changed?
No.
You
And
still
no
have
one's
this?
complained, right? You've had no complaints from the
Yeah,
neighbors?
no complaints.
Anyone, right?
Okay. You still have the same buffering trees around it and everything is still the same? Okay,
Everything's the
I have no further questions.
Okay. You have any questions? No. Okay. Any more questions by the board? Okay. Are there any members of the public that have a question for this particular application of Block 10104, Lot 5.01, Zone R2? So hearing none, I'm closing it to the public for questions and comments, since there are no public at all.
Oh, Fred's got a comment.
You have a comment?
all right.
Oh, come on
Wow,
up, Fred.
all right.
Right.
Do you have the microphone?
Yes.
The microphone's not there.
Trying to save the batteries until we had somebody to comment.
Yeah, okay.
Comment is, I do deed filings.
I'm available for testimony.
Available for deed filing.
Brad, if you want to, you can use this one.
Yeah, use that, but yeah,
Or you know what, you here, just take this, take it here.
Oh, my.
Just you might have to hold the bottom.
It's on microphones.
Frederick Zelli, tenant at 53 Division Avenue, Millington. Full disclosure, I have represented Ms. Gallo in the past. Actually, I think I prepared the deed restriction that we're talking about, if I remember right.
Fred, I think
Fred, you want to be sworn
I
in?
gotta swear you in.
Sure.
I think. All right. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed.
So actually, it's more of just a idea that perhaps the board professionals would want to consider in the board. There is case law, as I recall, it might be Gallo, but I'm not sure off the top of my head, that if you have a situation in your ordinance that acts like a conditional use despite not being specifically identified as that, you can treat it that way. This might be easier to accomplish by saying that you're deviating from the condition of the kitchen having to be removed and treat it as a D3. It's a lower standard. It's reasonable to accommodate if the site can accommodate the use, which obviously this can because she's had it in place all this time. Just might be an easier standard for the board to meet and might address the exact issues that you're raising. So just kind of throwing that out there. And thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred,
Thank
for
you,
your input. I appreciate it.
Thanks for asking your
Why-
opinion on that.
Quite frankly, I'm not familiar with the case, well, not the case, but with the certain vein of case law Mr. Rizzoli is referring to.
I
Liz, what do you think?
actually think we've crafted something so unique here
Yeah.
that we no longer want to just grant deviation from a condition for a senior suite
Right.
because we're actually sort of crafting some
Yeah.
conditions that
I mean, it kind of isn't even a senior suite use anymore in
anymore.
a sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But good suggestion though, Fred. I appreciate it. Yeah. Should have talked to you before the meeting. Would have helped.
My
So,
understanding of what we're talking about, it still remains a family use or
Right,
family
right,
use.
right.
Whether it's
Yeah.
senior, children, whatever relationship they have to
Or-
each other, it's
yeah.
still
Well-
within the family. It's not for.
Correct.
Okay.
But
for
it's-
public use.
the way
If we
senior,
went the other way with a D3,
Yeah.
we would be more narrowly confined
Just
in
seniors.
the opportunities moving forward.
right,
We
Which is
wouldn't
fine,
have the
too.
ability to flex it into an in-family.
right,
Okay.
right. Yeah. See, Jerry, the way the ordinance defined it, senior suite is itself a use, and it's got to be occupied by the senior member of the household, right?
Right.
So if we treat it as a D3, it could still only theoretically be only occupied by the senior member of the household. If we treat it as a D1 as a whole separate use, that's how you open it up to other members of the family.
Sure.
Makes
And
sense?
you're gonna limit the number of people that can.
Correct.
Two.
reside
Two
in
occupants.
the
Yep.
house.
Yeah. All the
Move out of
same.
Your master bedroom down
Right.
to the senior
Right.
suite
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, it's all
to
good.
accommodate you.
All right, now, any other questions or comments? Jerry, would you start the deliberation?
I think that it was a unique case. She has prior approval for a use that really did not serve her needs and could cause some kind of economic harm to her in the future if they had to change the residence, even within her family. I think it's reasonable that we
Just give me
approve
a
this.
second, I can make sure I get everything.
As we have testimony from our experts that we are not harming the area, the neighborhood, the ordinance. I think it's a good use for our residents to have this, to have a way to, accommodate senior family members and other members of your family that may need assistance. I think it's great. I think we've done a good job of trying to respect our ordinance while we do this and make sure that it's not trampled on by creating, multifamily uses in residential neighborhoods. So I'm in favor of the application.
Thank you. Meredith?
I echo all the sentiments that Jerry said. I think that, paying a special attention to limiting the number of people that specifically can reside there and the fact that, there's no other members from the public here that come here to voice their opinion specifically about it makes a big difference. That you came here prior for prior approval for this use. And again, it's, just not wanting to hinder any of the opportunities for you moving forward, because I know it's kind of a conundrum initially walking in here. So, with all the testimony that's been shared here tonight, I would absolutely favor this application.
Jonathan?
I agree. Here we go. I agree. I think that, the applicant has shown, and I think we've crafted something that shows that this is a special reason for this, and that meets the positive criteria, as well as meeting the negative criteria, that it doesn't do any harm or detriment to the neighborhood. And so I don't see any reason why we should not approve this.
Thank you. Jessica?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I'll add that unintentionally, you've, I think, brought to the board and hopefully the planning board's attention that this particular ordinance needs some attention and maybe some modernizing. So I'm in favor of the application for all the reasons that were stated and for the testimony that you gave. I think it's absolutely reasonable to ask that.
Tom?
First, I'd like to thank you for bringing this to our attention and bringing this back up to this board, where you could have let it ride out and just wait until see what happens when you sold, if and when that day ever comes. And so thank you for doing this early. And I think the town owes you a debt of gratitude, because we all noodled out an answer that is going to work for you and maybe for others down the road. So thank you very much. As for this particular case, your home is lovely, it's nicely situated, you're fine, nobody's bothering you, you're not bothering anybody. Why shouldn't you have it? I'm in favor.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think that you've shown throughout the 2 years you've had it, that it is not a detriment to the neighborhood. It is a positive. It suits a need in our society of having fellow family members living together, as opposed to, and having a separate kitchen. I think the kitchen is the big crux here. I would prefer that, or whatever you want to call that ordinance, senior suite, family, whatever, wouldn't have that rather harsh requirement that you whip out the kitchen and not be able to sell it to somebody else to use it as a senior suite. And, like Jerry said, maybe get a permit for it that you now can use it if you show the need for it. Because it's kind of silly to put money into something and have to rip it out. I think that's something we have to address. But I would be in favor of it, and thank you for bringing this to our attention. All right, would you want to just read off?
Can I go through it again?
Yeah, just sum it up.
I'll do my best, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, just sum it up.
All right, so the applicant here is seeking a D1 use variance to permit a quote-unquote in-family suite. As far as conditions go, the applicant would be required to comply with the portions of section 124.8 senior suites of the ordinance that would otherwise be applicable. I'm not going to reference the ordinance in there, but I'm just going to summarize those conditions. The in-family suite should not comprise more than, 879 square feet, the same footprint as the existing suite in the dwelling. No more than 2 persons shall occupy the proposed in-family suite. Applicant shall provide a plan for the proposed separate housekeeping facility, which provides sufficient information for the construction official to determine that all ordinance requirements will be met. I'm not entirely sure that's applicable now that it's actually constructed, so I think we can remove that one, scratch what I just said there. Other conditions, the applicant will be required to, the owner of the property will be required to have an annual recertification to ensure that the suite is being used as, in a manner envisioned by this approval, that being that it's being occupied by the
Family.
same member of the household, that they're complying with all their conditions of this approval, should it be an approval. Additionally, the applicant will need to amend the existing deed restriction to state that if the suite is not being occupied and used as envisioned by this approval being what the board is about to vote on right now, it shall be removed and the residents shall comply with all requirements for a single-family detached dwelling applicable to the, to the zone in which it's located. The applicant shall also, the owner of the property shall also maintain internal access between the proposed suite and the primary portion of the dwelling. And
But we're removing the requirement that she eliminate the kitchen. We don't have to remove the kitchen.
No, I'm not saying that. No, I'm saying she has to maintain the internal access between like
Right.
the house and the other one.
But before that, you said something about,
He's removing the
Yeah.
requirement.
yeah,
to
we don't
remove
have,
the-
we are not
he's-
making
Yeah,
it moving.
if it's no longer being used as an in-family suite, meaning that let's say they rent it out to somebody who isn't a member of the
Oh,
family.
okay, yeah.
That's when you would have to, you or somebody else would have
Well, that
to
would stand.
remove it.
Yeah,
Right.
okay, all right.
Right. Yeah, and, I believe that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that she can, well, put in there that she can amend her deed to indicate that she can, that this approval runs with the land, not the ownership.
Okay.
Can or must?
It will run with the
Well,
land.
by virtue-
She,
Change the deed.
well, I,
Must.
well, yeah, she must
has to.
change the deed, yeah.
She would be in violation.
Well, I didn't, what I meant by can is like she should, yeah.
But yeah,
I wasn't, obviously she should want to, because that's the whole purpose of it.
yeah.
So, yes, that, just
Yep.
make
I
sure
was
that,
just making sure the attorney got it right.
yeah, thank you.
It's going to be a fun one to write up, but I'm
Yes.
fairly confident.
Yeah, we'll run it past,
Big crayons.
yeah. All right, roll call on the, oh, I have the motion. Do I have a
I'll
motion?
move it. I'll
Okay.
move
I'll
Second?
second.
24
Roll call.
10Z.
Who was the second? Everybody was
I don't know.
talking.
Tom.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you. I'm deaf in one ear tonight, so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Aronian,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Grosskopf,
Yes.
Ms. Brennan,
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Collins,
Yes.
Chairman Grech,
Yes,
motion carries.
thank you. May have taken a little longer than I thought, but we got there.
That's
Yeah.
an hour of your life you'll
Yeah.
never get back.
Thank you.
And may your parents live with you for many, many years.
I don't know if,
Or may you, may
May you lose the key to the locked door.
move in and take care of you.
Yeah. Take care. I'll see you soon, Karen.
thank you.
Good night. Do you want a break?
Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break. Yeah, and then we'll come back. Have the pleasure. back.
I'm ready.
All right, we're back on the air.
Good 5 minutes.
You're gonna have to share that mic, guys, I'm sorry.
The other one was, it keeps going on and off. I don't understand.
Well, you need that one
Now
for the
it's
witness.
green again,
Yeah,
so,
it's green again, yeah, it's
all
good,
right.
it's good.
As long as it's green, I'll keep, trying.
Okay. Okay. We are back in session at 8:40. Now, the next application is a bulk variance, block 13402, lot 1.05, zone R2, known as 691 Long Hill Road, application number 24-13Z. Kyle Henry, applicant proposes to construct a new single-family dwelling. Is the applicant present?
Applicant is present with counsel.
And with counsel, very good. Could you identify yourself for the record?
For the record, Frederick Zelli, Chris Pollack on behalf of the applicant.
Okay. And how many witnesses are you gonna have?
We're gonna have two witnesses this evening, the applicant and Chris Vanessa, who is both our engineer and our planner.
Okay, would you go over the legal aspect?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. So in my legal opinion, the content and timeliness of service of this applicant's notice is sufficient to give the board jurisdiction to hear and decide the case. Notice was sent to owners of properties within 200 feet of the subject property by certified mail on August 23rd, 2024, and also published in the Echo Sentinel on August 22nd, 2024, both more than 10 days in advance of tonight's hearing. So with that, the board has jurisdiction to hear the case.
May I just add one thing just for correction for the agenda? There is a use variance component with this application that I did not note on the agenda.
Okay,
D variance, not use.
Yeah, use variance.
okay, deep variance, okay.
So I'll swear everyone in, Mr.
Swear in
Chairman.
everybody.
Yeah, our board professional.
They're all called use.
Would your witnesses stand up and be sworn in, please?
Okay. Do all of you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. Mr. Zelli, please take it away.
Proceed.
Thank you. This is regarding 691 Long Hill Road, it is block 13402, lot 1.05, located in the R2 zone. The applicant is a contract purchaser of this property. The property itself is a vacant parcel that has been in existence since a 1985 subdivision by Patrick and Terrence Golden back at that time. This is the third application dealing with this particular lot, starting with that subdivision. In 2007, approvals were granted for the development of this lot, very similar in nature to the relief that we're seeking this evening. I'm sure you're all very familiar with this stretch, being the Golden Zone property that's been developed. It is, to say the least, a challenging lot.
Yeah.
It is sloped all the way down from Long Hill Road down, but it is a legally created lot, created by your planning board, and as a result, essentially, something has to be permitted, or else no action has to be taken. So, I'm not remotely saying that in a threatening way, I'm just pointing out something has to be done with this lot, and we're here this evening asking you to allow Mr. Henry to be the one that can finally develop it after all these years. As I said, the variances we're seeking, except for the ones that the ordinance didn't exist in 2007 or 1985, are very similar to what was proposed in 2007. What is different and significantly different is this is a two-story home that initially will be a one-story living area with a basement below it. Mr. Henry will testify that it is his intention at some point to fit out that lower level as well. The septic system designed for this property is being adopted from the original design. The original design that was approved in 2007 was for a four-story, much larger and more bedroom home. So we don't have concerns about that additional fit-out rather than to running afoul of the septic design. So I just want to go through very briefly what the variances are. There are a number of them, so I'll try to go through quickly. First of all, the principal structure located within the front yard. We are seeking 27.99 feet, 28.1, so almost the same exact measurement was approved back in 2007. Pursuant to the subdivision, relief was actually granted for that. 35.2 feet was approved as part of the 1985 subdivision, whereas otherwise 75 feet would be required. Next is a bulk variance for an accessory structure located within the front yard setback. 35 again was required by the planning board in 1985. We're seeking 11.26 for a detached two-car garage. Just one level, no loft or anything like that above it. Next is the D6 use variance for building height in excess of 110% of the limit. The limit is 35 feet. 46.33 was approved in 2007. 55.12 is being sought this evening, but that is measured in the rear. That is measured from the slopes. The actual height from street perspective, again, is just one story, nowhere near your 35-foot height, so we're not suggesting.
Do you know the height from the street off the top of your head?
I don't have that right off the
Okay.
top of my head. But again, it is one story, so it's a little low pitch roof.
Fred, is part of the 55 feet, part of the basement that's not
Covered.
buried?
There's almost no part of the basement that is buried.
In the back?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the front.
Maybe a little on the sides and all the front.
From the front perspective, yes.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah.
And we
It
know,
includes everything.
we know that it's within whatever the parameters are where we have to count that as a story?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fred,
This is a bulk
can you,
variance.
I'm sorry, Fred, could you repeat what was approved in '07?
07 was 46.32 feet.
Thank you.
The building in 2007 was further, I don't know if it's explain that rather than trying to do it. There's one that's a 4-story that was actually bulk variance for development within critical areas, namely steep slopes. This was relief was granted in 2007. Variance for development created in excess of 70% impervious coverage of the non-critical areas. This relief was also granted in 2007. Bear in mind that we basically don't have any non-critical areas on this lot. Bulk variance for setback of the principal building from critical area. In the front yard, 50 feet is required. Again, we can't have any because there is no non-critical area. This relief was not granted in 2007, but best we can tell, the ordinance didn't exist at that time, and that's why. So this seems to be a new ordinance. Unfortunately,
For which one?
your ordinance, like most, doesn't make it clear as to what was passed when, so it's not always easy to figure that out. Bulk variance for setback of principal building from critical area of the side yard, 25 feet again, 0 feet, so with that same situation, that does not seem to be in existence in 2007. If it was missed. Bulk variance for excessive retaining wall height in the front yard. We are seeking, in our application, it says 7.22. It's actually going to be more than that because of the guardrail, which your professionals pointed out. So Mr. Nasser will tell you what the actual number would be. 6.5 was approved in 2007. 4 feet is what's permitted. Finally, bulk variance for, I'm sorry, not finally, second and finally. Bulk variance for excessive retaining wall height, side and rear yard. We are seeking 7.59 and 6.44, where 14 and 6 are permitted. Where 6 is permitted and 14 and 19.5 were approved in 2007. So what we're seeking for that variance is significantly less than it was approved back then. And then finally, your professionals pointed out that the conservation zone in front of the property, the first 75 feet off the street, will be obviously compromised since we're developing well within that area. So to the extent our development is going to require removal of trees, that will require variance relief from that requirement. And that, I believe, is the list. It's a lengthy list, but again, for the most part, we believe this is a better application than what was already approved in 2007. Clearly, the home is more modest. The height, even though officially it's higher from the perspective of the street, as far as the negative criteria goes, we think this is a more appropriate application and better from a planning perspective. So we have 2 witnesses this evening. Mr. Henry himself will testify as to why he wants to build this house, and then also he will go over the architecture with you. We do not have the architect separately this evening. The design of the house is very straightforward. I don't think there's any technical issues that Mr. Henry won't be able to answer himself. And then Chris Nasser, as I said, is both our engineer and our professional planner this evening. I do have 2 exhibits that I'll bring up. Actually, now.
I like that idea.
So yes, that's okay.
Absolutely, Mr. Zelli.
So the first is handout copies. 5 pages with images and a floor plan of a conceptual garage, the detached garage, thank you so much, with the A1.
Call that a compendium exhibit.
Thank
And that's dated today, Mr. Zelli?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We're not representing that we're building this exact garage, but Mr. Henry testified that this is essentially what's being proposed conceptually. And then the second exhibit, which I'm introducing really, it's a matter of public record, but just in case the board has questions about the original subdivision layout, and specifically about the septic easement. This might be helpful during the course of the meeting. So we'll make that A2. And this is the 1985 subdivision map that was recorded by the county clerk.
Thank you. And this is dated May 28th, 1985.
December,
Yeah.
December 19.
September 17th.
Oh, that's,
I have
It's
December
signed.
19?
I'm looking at the plan date at the bottom.
Oh, plan
Oh,
day,
plan
December
date,
20.
It
okay.
was recorded December 19th.
Okay. All right,
It's
so we'll
file
do-
map 4432, correct?
Yes, we'll use the recording date then. Thank you all. Okay.
Mr. Henry, you are under oath already. Could you give the board benefit of your current mailing address?
Current mailing address is 7.
Pick up that mic, please, closer to you. Thank you.
Like this?
Yes, thank
Is
you.
it even working?
It should be.
Anything?
Yeah, it's working, yeah.
So,
It's more for the recording than us.
yeah, my current mailing address is 7 Steeplechase Lane in Asbury, New Jersey, 08802.
Okay.
And you are the contract purchaser of 691 Long Hill Road, New Township, is that correct?
That's correct.
And when did you enter into the contract approximately?
I believe about a year ago at this point.
And is it your intention to develop a single-family home on this property?
That is my intention.
Is it your intention to do that for your own residency, or is this an investment that you intend to sell with third party?
It is for me.
Single, family man, what do you have at this point?
I'm a single man.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
Mm,
No, it's fine. I'm just kidding.
No comment.
Fiance's gonna watch this, now I'm gonna get killed when I go home.
The architecturals that have been submitted with the application, do they accurately reflect essentially what you intend to build?
They do reflect it pretty accurately. Should I mention that?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in just 1 second. I'm gonna show you what's been marked for identification as Exhibit A1. And I'm gonna ask you, again, you just stated, you're not submitting this as what you're exactly building, but does this accurately represent the general concept of what you intend to do?
Yes, it does. For the detached garage?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, we placed the plans for Mr. Bell on a board. Mr. Nuss is gonna put it up on the computer. And what I'm gonna ask you to do is grab the microphone off the podium and then go on over to the plans.
It's working okay?
Yes, that's working fine.
So what I'm going to ask you to do is to, page by page, describe what you're planning to the board. The first page, I understand, is a floor plan of what we'll call the first floor, the street level floor. And then if you want, before you flip over to the elevations, you can describe the plan for the lower floor, what it shows on the plans now, and what your general intent is for that floor, if you would.
So over here, on the right-hand side, we have the first floor. So it's very open. So you have the entrance here, and then over to the left, you have laundry, full bath, and a bedroom with a walk-in closet. And then straight from the entrance, you have pretty much a very large open living room connected to the kitchen. And then there's a walk-in pantry on this side. Originally, it was connected to the garage, but we decided to move the garage because of the slope. So that's why there's a detached garage now. And then you can see on the left side of the first floor, it's pretty much all master suite. So master bedroom, it walks out. There's a deck on the back side of the house. So the deck goes across the entire length of the house. So you can reach the deck from the living room or from the master suite. So again, there's a bedroom. There's a bit of a study, like there's a break here. And then it's just bathroom and another walk-in closet. And then stairs to the lower level. The lower level, because it is above the slope, we don't know if we want to call it a basement or not, but we'll call it a basement for now. And mostly it would be storage. So this half here, storage all around. And then this part, this upper right corner, I was thinking about making into a bedroom with a bathroom because, again, the approved septic was for a much larger house, so we think it wouldn't be a problem to have another bedroom and bathroom. And then this area, again, is just open. But because there would be windows and light, I think it would be fine to treat it almost like another living room because there's already storage back here. So
Is there presently designed to be any kind of a deck behind what we're calling the basement level?
I was thinking about it.
So it's something you might want to do.
It's something I might want to do in the future just because it is, again, above ground and there's a lot of windows. I think it would be nice, especially with the slope. It would look really nice. I think so.
And then this board's very familiar with the view that's off of this property,
Yeah.
which is certainly its main attraction. You might have said this, I just want to make sure there are 2 bedrooms on the first floor, correct?
Yes, on the first floor there
That's
are
where the
2
second
bedrooms.
Non-master bedroom is?
In this bottom right corner here.
Okay. And can you show us where the detached garage would be located by way of orientation against the house?
So by way of orientation against the house, the detached garage would be, so here's the front of the building. The detached garage would be this way.
I'm sorry, when you say front of the building, which direction is that facing? North, south, east, west?
North.
The front
This is
faces
facing
north.
north.
Okay, thank you.
Facing the street, correct?
Yeah, the street would be that way.
Understood, thank
Meaning
you.
down, you pointed down.
Down, yeah.
Down on the map, but up in.
Down on the
topography,
map,
correct?
up in topography.
Right.
All right, now would you show us the next 2 pages with the elevations, please?
So you can see here that looking at it dead on, this is the front of the building. It looks like a 1-story building because most of the rest of the house is behind the slope here. And you can see the rest of the house here. So this is the first floor, and then the deck, it's 2-dimensional, so you can't really see it. And then this is the second floor where I'm thinking about having a smaller deck underneath. And these are piers which would support the deck. So
And just to be clear, the
Yeah.
top is your front view, the bottom on this sheet is your rear view.
yes, this is the front, this is the rear.
Am I to understand that the entire front of this home, will be viewable from the street when driving by? I was just there today, right at your property, and a lot of the homes nearby, built years ago with different engineering, but they're a little bit more,
Recessed.
they're recessed to the street. You drive by, you see the tops of their houses.
Yeah, you would
Yours
see
will be
more of the
different.
top of the
Mr.
house.
Nestor will be be going over that in detail, but the house does sit down.
It is low within the
There's
street.
still, off the top of my head, around 10 feet drop.
Yeah.
So you're basically
Mr. Nestor will
looking,
be going into that in detail.
so you're basically looking at more of the roof of the house.
The
So it's
pier-
gonna look like less than a 1-story house.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The piers that you mentioned, you said they were gonna support the deck. Do they also support the house?
We're gonna get to that when I go to the next page. Yes, but a different set of piers. Are we ready to go to the
Yeah.
next page? So here's the side view, and you can see the one set of piers here, and then what appears to be a wall here. This has not yet been drawn in, but this would be piers to avoid having to move a great deal of soil, basically. So there would be piers here, as well as piers here supporting this portion of the house. A small amount of it would actually be recessed into the slope, but this wall would not exist, and it would be piers again to, again, make it so that we don't have to move all of this dirt, which would be very expensive. So that was one of the things that engineer helped me figure out in order to make this more feasible.
So what you're saying is your plan is not exactly accurate to what's being built, as far as that one, that about.
As far as this piece here, yes.
Okay, so that we need that changed if that was the case.
And to Ms. Brennan's point, so from the front perspective and standing on the driveway in front of the home, you're not seeing any portion of that basement. However, because the slope starts so quickly, most of that basement is in fact exposed. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and we are looking on the top, looking at it from the west, and on the bottom from the east. Am I seeing that?
I believe so, yes. So it's the east elevation, west elevation. Is that-
Mr. Henry, at
Yeah,
this time, you don't have to do that.
Board experts. Board experts, do you have questions of the, of this expert, this witness, I mean?
With, regarding the basement, and I guess let's stay on that page, just walking out at that basement level, if you were to put anything out there, it would be essentially a lower level deck rather than an at-grade patio,
Right,
right? Because it's still then suspended above.
yes,
Okay, so it's almost like a whole nother floor drop on the foundation line, the piers.
right.
Correct, okay, understood.
I don't
I
have
have a
any.
question.
Oh, yes, Joey, go ahead.
You're a builder, you're a contractor, is that your trade?
I am not.
You are not. So you're a resident, or a proposed resident, to build this house, and you're gonna contract all of the work out?
Yes,
Okay. Have you ever built a house before?
no.
Good luck.
Well, you seem to be very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of time to go over this.
Well, good. I wanted to ask, why was there only 2 bedrooms on the first floor? You don't anticipate, I mean, I know you said possibly building one in the basement, but there was no thought of attempting to put a second bedroom on the first floor, or?
You mind if I go back on
Yeah.
the,
No, go ahead. Yeah, there's only 2, right, a third
Yeah.
one I meant, yeah.
I had wanted to leave a lot of room for the kitchen, and I didn't want to make the house very wide because the slope does vary. So for this width of house, the slope is pretty consistent. So for example, we couldn't put the garage here because the slope is a lot deeper on the one side. So I didn't want to make the house wide because that would make it a lot more difficult to continue with the idea. So I wanted to keep it narrower.
Okay. And do you believe that the configuration on the first floor is useful to you as being only a 2-bedroom, or?
I think it's very useful to me, yes.
Okay. All right. You know, one of the things we want to make sure on this board, that people build something that is usable for them in the future, and not something they have to come back to us and want to change.
And then have to add
because-
more to it, right.
So, okay. Any other
That's
questions?
why we brought this up now, that, you know, if his family situation or whatever might change, that he would want additional bedrooms, the ability to do it is there.
Is the
As far
basement,
as we know,
right.
the septic is
Big enough.
well accommodated. Obviously, your construction department would make sure of that. You know, basically what we're looking at, if you're familiar with shore homes, very often you have what we call a reverse floor plan. So where you have bedrooms on the lower floor.
Right.
And even though we're calling this a basement, in reality, most of it is exposed. Of course, the whole
But it's
rear
still
section
gonna
is
be,
flat.
cement block and the traditional built of a basement. You'd have to finish the walls down there.
Yeah, the walls will be finished, but on the outside it would be
Okay. Oh, you doing, put sheetrock on the walls down there?
down there. Yeah.
Okay.
And your living room space and your kitchen, it's all an open floor plan?
Yes, this is all open and protected. There's not really any wall of any type in there.
I was looking at the south side of the house too, the south elevation. It's all windows with 2 French doors that open up onto the deck. So you're gonna get a lot of natural sunlight that's coming in as well. That's all windows there, correct?
It's all windows, yes.
Okay.
Jerry?
Yeah, about the garage. Looks like a prefab structure, I think that's what the handout said.
Yes.
It's actually, these are actually architectural designs, it's 24 by 24, so.
Okay.
If it were prefab, it would have to be in units.
So it's not stick-built, it's prefab?
It could be stick-built, if it were modular, it would have to be in sections.
Okay.
The whole garage is not capable of being transported because of its width.
Right.
The question I have about the garage is, do you think it's sufficient to handle 2 cars? It says on there, the handout, it said plenty of room for storage. Does it have room for 2 cars and, you know, the typical things you find in a household to maintain the property, whether it's a lawnmower?
Such as
snowblower,
lawnmowers and-
bikes,
okay.
athletic equipment, all that stuff that's stuffed in my garage from floor to ceiling. Probably gonna be in yours too at some point, or whoever else might buy this property. Is that shed type garage sufficient to do what we're intending it to do?
I had originally intended only for my car alone to be there in the first place, so in the event that it was just me the entire time, yes, I think so. In the event that, say, I got married in 1,000 years, and I had to have someone else share the garage with me, I do believe that I would have to find a room for other things, maybe park outside. I'd hope not, but
Right.
that would probably be my first idea, is to move my car outside instead of try to expand the garage. But
All the stuff that you find in the garage will fit in there, maybe not the cars with it, so that's fine. Then the parking area outside of the garage, is that sufficient to handle several parked cars and also act as a turnaround, because you cannot back up that hill onto Waldo Road, it's foolish to do that.
I think you would definitely have room to turn around. What do you mean by several cars?
If someone
3,
visit
4.
you and your cars are not in the garage, or in the future, if, like you said, someone else owns the property and they have, you know, bicycles and lawnmowers in the garage and they park outside, what does that look like?
I think there would be room for a couple of cars, perhaps not 3 or 4, but I do think there would be room enough to turn around and maneuver such that you could drive out in a safe way.
Thank you.
The board can also take notice of the fact that even a full-size pickup truck or a full-size SUV is approximately 18 feet long. So that leaves you another 6 feet behind each vehicle, even if both vehicles were of that size. So there is actually a decent amount of storage in a 24 by 24.
Thank you.
Is there any thought at this point, where you have the columns in the back of your home, to someday seal that off and make that some sort of storage facility or for any other possible use?
Because of how high it is, I do not think that would be very feasible. Additionally, these columns, though they look like wide here, they would probably be steel piling, so think more rods. So I don't think it would be as easy to seal that off as it might look, especially because it's not like, it would not be these 4 pilings and then a wall. It would be these 4 pilings and then yet more pilings behind that. So the area would be a lot bigger than what is shown by the idea of a wall back here. So I don't think that would be feasible to turn that into storage. No.
So kind of would be more like being under a boardwalk, since we're talking with Jersey Shore.
Yeah. Also, I don't know how you'd get down there with like a vehicle, because it's like that.
Okay.
Where are the utilities in this house?
Back this way. So you would cut this area in the back pretty much in half. So this whole area back here could be utilities, and for things like an HVAC, like a compressor, you could level out an area outside and keep that out there. I don't think affixing it to the house would be a good idea, again, because of the slope. So you level out a small space for all that. But yeah, this whole quarter of the basement floor.
Can I have a question? So when you're looking at the southern elevation, your rear elevation, and the upper story, which I understand is not an upper story, at the front of the house, what is happening? What do you envision happening is it a separate floor? Is it open to the ground? I mean, to the ground floor, or what?
You said the rear elevation?
Yeah, so like on the rear elevation, you have the
Right.
basement, the ground floor, and then what looks like a story above, that's just maybe a half
Oh,
story.
this.
Yes.
This is just more windows.
So it's just your ground floor is sort of double height, or?
So
what's
imagine the roof goes like this.
that? Yeah,
So you have windows and then more windows, and then here's the floor, and then
Oh.
the second floor underneath that.
okay.
So,
So it looks like
From
two
the
stories back
side.
there, but it's
See it
just
from the
double
side.
windows.
Yeah.
right.
I
So
see.
here where those other windows,
Oh, I see.
Okay,
Right.
gotcha, okay.
it's windows, windows.
Like Frank Lloyd right from the back,
Right.
traditional from the front.
Right, Yeah.
Interesting.
okay, thank you.
Right.
A lot of windows.
I don't think we've talked about this yet, and maybe you know, maybe you don't know. The building of this home on the lot, we do have right-of-way on the lot for septic. Is this going to in any way encumber any cleanouts or anything that needs to be done in the future?
Mr.
mean-
Messer can address anything like that.
Oh,
There's another, yeah. I imagine you'll do that. Yeah.
Any other questions for the witness? Experts, you have any questions? Mr. Zelli, have any questions, any more? What?
No more for me, but,
Okay, yes. Are there a member of the public that would like to ask this witness questions? Yes, come on up, identify yourself. Would you give him the mic, share the mic? Sorry, we don't have more than one. We're a little micless here. Yeah, all right. Please say your name and address for the record.
Gene Smith, 205 Mountain Avenue in Gillette.
Okay, and this is just the question part. Do you have a question for the witness?
More for the town, the zoning.
You have a question for
approval
who
use.
then?
For
Who-
the witness?
Yeah, do you,
Well,
well, who do you have a question either for the witness or for his attorney or for our, you could ask questions of our experts?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
It has to do with the impervious coverage, because I'm the lot downhill from him on
What
the
I would
west.
suggest, sir, is after our engineer has spoken, he's the one you would need to ask, so
Mhm.
probably makes more
Okay,
sense to wait.
so if your question deals with engineering or that type of matter, you might want to wait
Okay.
for the next expert.
Yes, okay.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from the public? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close it to the public at this time, but I'm going to let you ask a question of the next expert, whichever expert is separate questioning.
Mr. Henry, you can join me again, and Messer will take it.
Okay, could you state your name and your occupation, please?
Absolutely. It's Christopher Nusser, Nusser, with French and Perlow Associates, 700 Grand Avenue, Hackettstown, New Jersey. I'm a licensed professional engineer and planner in the state of New Jersey. I have appeared before over 70 boards in the state in that capacity, in front of your planning board, never before this board. My licenses are in good standing.
Okay, I deem you as an expert, thank you.
Thank you.
Expert in,
For the record, in both fields.
For both fields, yes, for engineering and for planning.
Thank you.
Mr. Messer, were you tasked with the engineering design for this project?
I was.
Okay, would you please first tell us the nature of the property, and if you would take it from there, and if you want to make reference to the prior applications at appropriate times, please feel free to do so.
Absolutely. I'm going to switch here quickly. This is the submitted plans. It's just sheets 1 and 2 of the plans
Okay.
on board here.
No changes made to them?
No changes.
Okay.
So again, this is block 13405, lot 1.05. It's a 45,044 square foot lot surrounded by single-family homes in its entirety. Fronting on Long Hill Road, its most conspicuous condition is the one we're here for, which is the fact that it loses just about 100 feet of elevation from the road to the rear of the property and about 300 feet. So from the get-go, we have a lot that's basically at a 3-to-1 slope on average, front to back. Again, this, as Mr. Zelli said, this lot was created by subdivision in 1985. It is undeveloped. It is classified as being a wooded lot. There is that access that we have talked about for what's listed on what is A2, which is the filed map, as a 20-foot wide access easement for septic maintenance. That starts on lot 1.03 to the east, 2 lots to the east of us, comes across lot 104 through this property. It curves through lot 1 and then comes back through everybody's lot again down at a lower elevation. And this is because everybody's septic systems are towards the rear of the lot and much lower in elevation, so the only way to get there is using this access road. It is graded. You can see it on the plan. You can see it actually is graded out as a path through the property. On lot 1.04 to our east, it is improved to that point. That property, that's what they use as their principal access. So it is both their driveway and a portion of the easement. So as I said, we basically have a 3-to-1 slope on average, front to back, on the property on average. There are some areas that quite possibly are under 15% slope, but per your ordinance's definition of a critical area, where it's measured over a 10-foot rise of elevation, there is no portion of the lot where we have an average slope less than 15%. So the entirety of this lot is a critical area. That condition hasn't changed since that prior approval in 2007, where, as Mr. Zelli said, this board granted relief at that time. So that house, and I was going to mount that plan on a board for you, and unfortunately, I don't have a full copy with a title block on it, and I didn't want to hand in something that was half. I do have a couple prints if we did need to get to there, if the board wanted to see what it looked like, but I don't know the plan date, and I can't say 100% that that's the one that the board approved. So just so it's clear. So if somebody wants to see it on the board, please ask.
Can you give us a general idea of the magnitude
Yes.
of the home compared to this one?
Yeah, so that house had a larger footprint. It had, as we said, it was a 4-story house. So from the street level, it's a 2-story house, typical of the other homes in the immediate vicinity. The house to the east on lot 1.04, just the same. And then it had a basement level and then a lower level below the basement level. It had a side entry garage that came in at the basement level. So you had a basement level with a garage in it, and then you had another level below it. The driveway came out. The driveway was central to the lot, a little askew with the road across the street, and then came down at about 15% and had a big curve down into the driveway. And even the landing area at the bottom was 8% into the driveway or into the garage. So it had quite a heavy slope going into the house. It had a number of walls. It had what's listed alternatively as a deck, as a patio. There's some discussion in the prior resolution. But there's walled sections beyond the house that were 14 to 19 feet in height. So significant walls below the house, which is in part how this house has a request for a greater height variance than what was previously approved. It's because there were basically walls raising the grade below the house and lowering that exposure in the rear. So we had a house that, again, really in a disturbance perspective, stretched all the way from the eastern property line, and it involved regrading of the driveway down through here. So really the limited disturbance was the whole top half plus the area for the septic, which, as Mr. Zelli said, is fairly consistent with what we're proposing.
Just to stop you for 1 second, so
Sure.
comparing the current application to the 2007 application, the actual elevation of the ridgeline for the 2007 home was, it sounds like the better part or a full story higher than ours. The height measurement is different because they artificially created a different level of the ground to begin with.
Yeah, so the first finished floor previously approved was 397 and a half. The current is 396. So we're actually proposing a finished floor that's about a foot and a half lower than what was previously approved.
At that house, they were going 2 stories above that, as opposed to one that would.
That's correct.
So their roof line was significantly higher, even though the overall height by definition was lower.
Correct. That's correct. So just wanted to compare a little bit about what was previously approved with what is proposed now. And so what's proposed now is, again, it's a 2-story dwelling. And as Mr. Zelli said, it's kind of an inverted footprint where you come in on the first floor and then there's a floor below. It wouldn't technically be a basement because most of it is exposed on the side. From a building code perspective, it would be considered a story. The house itself is sat at 35 feet back from the front right-of-way line, which was consistent with what that prior resolution, sorry, I shouldn't say prior resolution when there's 2, the subdivisions resolution, what was permitted at that time for the lots to be at 35 feet. So the house is at that 35-foot mark. That's consistent with what the prior approval was. The difference here is we have a front porch here that sticks 7 feet further in, and because of a little bit of the angles, we have a 27.99-foot front yard setback, where previously it was granted at 28.1. So a de minimis difference between the two. And again, similarly on that application, the difference was they had a front porch on the house that was extending it forwards. The driveway, we went through a couple different configurations. I think as you heard the applicant speak, he spent a considerable amount of time trying to figure out the best way to develop this lot, and really thought through a lot of different options, had geotechnical analysis done on the property to make sure that the piers that he discussed with you were a viable option, to go through the cost of that to make sure these things were reasonable, were appropriate for what was being proposed. So as he said, originally the garage was attached to the dwelling. That would have removed some of the relief. The problem was you were building a garage and the back side of the garage had a 15-foot tall wall behind it that you would have to construct, fill, compact, build a slab on top of, and hope didn't settle on you as you parked your car in it. And 15 feet of fill is quite a lot to manage, and there's some issues and some risks in there. And so, we've gone through a couple different iterations here, as I said, and this is what we've worked out as being the best solution for it. So we have the driveway entering from the western side of the property. That is the lowest portion of the road. So we're starting on the lower part. So, already we're helping ourselves. Coming across the face of the house. So we're losing grade till we get to the front door here at about 12.5%, till we get to the front door, and then it levels out. And then again, you go beyond and you have the pad space, the backup area, which is not at 8%. It's at 2%. It's what you would expect from it. So if you threw up a basketball hoop, you could play basketball.
Just don't let it go over the.
Well, yeah.
Before you get too far into the current plan,
Yeah.
can I just ask a question about
Absolutely.
the 07 plan, since you spent a lot of time on that? So, do we know why the house wasn't built according to that plan, or why that never moved forward?
I don't.
Does the applicant?
No,
or the
we've-
attorney know? Yeah. Well,
Real estate.
we'll swear you in later and I'll ask that question. So, but it was never done, and I'm assuming it's expired, right? I mean, the applicant couldn't take that plan and just build that house today without going through this whole process. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I think that's legally, that's correct.
Okay, so, and
There's no sense.
a lot's changed since 2007, right?
Mhm.
Just in terms of ordinances and the area. So I know you spent a lot of time on what was approved in 2007, but I don't know that it really matters that much to what we're talking about today. So,
Other than you're making a point this is smaller. We get
Yeah,
that.
I think the point was just to compare that there was a prior approval. Your professionals described the prior approval, so I'm just going through to compare. The prior approval doesn't bind this board in any way. I think the prior approval makes a lot of findings that are relevant to the application at hand. But yes, you're correct. It does not, you're not bound by that.
okay.
Could that be built, or is that expired?
He's saying
That's
it's
expired.
expired.
You could
Okay,
build.
Yeah.
just to double check
And-
that.
We know there's no such thing as precedent, but when your standard is arbitrary, capricious, and unreasonable, if, God forbid, we had to start making arguments about that, if there was an approval already that was similar or actually more egregious in some ways.
But it was so many years ago, right?
It
I
was,
mean,
but nothing's
Almost
physically
40
changed.
years ago for
Yeah,
the first
the
one.
property hasn't changed,
Property is-
basically.
right.
But laws and.
Or-
local
yeah,
Ordinances
ordinances
have,
and
yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
have,
To the
right?
extent
Water
that we're seeking
management
relief
and the
from
like.
something new, then I would certainly
Yes.
agree with that.
Right.
Right.
But most of it, most of the requirements that we're looking at are the same now as they were then, and that's why we see it as relevant, and that's we just wanted to.
Well,
especially since
stormwater
The board has
management,
changed
Yeah.
somewhat over the.
stormwater management certainly has changed since 2007, and I think that that's going to be an issue
Yeah.
there.
So I think, and let me just clarify a little bit. I'm not trying to, again, to say that, well, this board approved it once and you guys need to do this again.
I just want to be clear.
Yeah,
that
no, I understood, yeah.
That's in a different bucket, and it's nice for
Yeah.
background.
But yeah, right, and I think that's the point, and that's why we want to just give the background and the understanding of what it had been and what we've moved into, so. So layout-wise, again, we have finally then the garage, which is on the eastern side of the property. That is in front of the house, number one, and number two, 11.26 feet off of the front setback, or from the front right-of-way line. Both of those things need relief, and we'll get into planning discussion as we go through here. The reason for it being in this location from an engineering perspective is that this area is, again, we're building it on solid ground. We're not building it on multiple feet of fill. It helps reduce the disturbance and the impacts to trees that we would otherwise have. Understand that we are in the front yard, and that presents its own set of challenges. I will note that the finished floor on the garage is I'm going to flip over here to sheet 2. finished floor on the garage is 392.5.
Chris, grab your microphone for the record.
It's a.
It's movable, you can take it.
I know. But then I got to put it back in. So the garage is at a 392.5. The road's at a 402.5. So the road's actually 10 feet higher than the finished floor on the garage. The garage will be approximately 16 feet tall. So really, what you're going to see is roof of the garage. This, the shingle side of, because you're not looking at the gable end, you're looking at the shingle side. So you're looking at the slope portion of the roof, and it's just 6 feet sitting up. So it's not a garage really in the front yard. It's really screened by the topography and how it's sited on to the lot.
Is it fair to say that that's pretty much true for the home too, except for the peak above the front door? Primarily looking at the roof.
Yeah, so the house, again, is at a 396, and the road there, it's maybe a little bit lower. Maybe we're a
2403.
maybe 402 at that point, maybe a half foot lower. So, yeah, we're significantly below the road at that point. Going up to the height, you probably have about 15 or so feet. I think to one of the board members' questions, about 15 feet above the road elevation of the house. And from the architecturals, you look at the, just gonna carry it over. If we look at the west and east elevation, really the highest part of the roof is all the way in the back. So you're not, you're being presented, yes, you have this little gable in the front over top of the porch. But that's lower by a couple feet than the ultimate peak of the roof. So really the highest part is in the back, which then again is exacerbated by the fact that the ground is dropping off. So again, the presentation of the house as you're driving down the road is that of a single-family house set down low, which is typical of all the other homes that are along the road. The house, again, is situated closer to the front, where it's at 27.99 feet to the front of the porch. Let's see. Oh, I almost skipped right over stormwater, and that would have come right back at me. So, from a stormwater perspective, this is a minor stormwater project. So this is not a major development. The town has a code and a requirement for such cases of what needs to be done for a development such as this, and it's basically to store the runoff from the dwelling, any roof area, and in this case, we're collecting the driveway as well. So we're collecting the roof of the house in its entirety, which includes the deck because the deck has a roof over top of it, the garage, and the driveway, along with a little bit of the grass area with it that's going to slope in. That collects into a trench drain, and they're directed into a series of 4 dry wells that meet the code requirements for how much storage needs to be provided. I will note a couple things from your engineer's letter. There's a request to do testing of the dry wells to make sure they work. As I said, the applicant already had geotechnical work done. They had a boring go down 20 feet right about here, which is a little bit downhill, kind of off the back corner of the house. The company did a boring that went 20 feet down, and they hit water at the very bottom of it. So we're well above water, which somewhat expected. We're up on the hill. For the septic system, the testing that was done for the septic system passed very easily. It's a good sandy soil. So we have full confidence in the operation of the system, that it will operate correctly, that we don't have a groundwater issue, and that the soils will drain adequately for the dry wells, and that they will, like I said, they'll work and mitigate the stormwater impacts from the development. Also note in your engineer's letter, question was, why are we putting them in the access drive? Because they are located within the access drive. And that's because, not to go back to the prior approval, but in the prior approval, that's where they were located, and they were located that way. When you read the resolution, they weren't originally, and they were asked to be relocated into that area during the hearing, and that was actually a discussion point in the resolution, that they be placed there. So understanding that they would have to be load rated, because that is, that would be access if somebody needed to get down to use the easement for maintenance. We would have to do that, but from an ease of construction, limiting disturbances, because we're putting it in an already disturbed area, not having to take down additional trees, this really is the best location to put it.
Just for the record, that was from the 2007 approval or the original?
The 2007 approval, yes.
But putting aside the 2007 approval, is it your professional opinion that that's the best location for these dry wells today?
Yes, yeah, because again, they're big concrete tanks that you got to get down there. So from a constructability standpoint, you can back them right in down the access road and put them in place. It's much easier than trying to crane it down the hill somewhere. Because it's already the access road, it's cleared of trees, so we're not taking down additional trees. Really, one of the things that we're trying to do here with this design, with the way it's being proposed to be constructed on piers, is to really limit a lot of the disturbance, limit tree removal to the extent we can. Obviously, it's a wooded lot. You can't fully avoid knocking down and having to cut down any trees. But the idea here is to try and minimize and mitigate the limits of all of that.
But from a functionality standpoint,
Mhm.
putting aside, it's easy to get them there. Is there a better location for
No.
them? Okay.
Because it's also easier to maintain them. So from a functionality standpoint, it's easier to check on them. It's easier to maintain them when they're here. This is a very limited use access way. It will get, especially here, right, on lot 104, it's his main driveway. Again, it's improved, so that gets used all the time because that's how they principally access. The way that this site is laid out, and the way that the neighboring property is laid out, there's no reason to access unless you have an issue with the septic. So in the event that the septic would need to be replaced on either lot, yes, somebody would have to come in there and they would go over it, but that's
You're not quite answering my question.
limited.
though. From a
Yeah.
functionality
Yeah.
standpoint, in terms of capturing the water and dispersing it the way that it's supposed to,
Oh.
is there a better location on this property than that access road to do that?
No, I don't think so. No, I mean, it is downhill of all those improvements, so it's easy enough to get the water in there without running it too far. I think it's better to have it closer to the house than it is to find another location where maybe it was further away, because you're trying to catch the slope, right? So you're already making up a lot of slope. You're going to have water running too quickly through pipes. From just an overall function standpoint, everything, it's the best location to put it.
And Joe, you agree with that?
I would, I'd say particularly, you noted the test pits at that location were down 20-plus feet
Yeah.
before hitting groundwater. So there's an opportunity at that location to recharge freely downward, and 20 feet down in slope from that location would bring you to the elevation of the easement as it crosses back through the property. So at the rear of the property, that's the elevation of the groundwater. So anywhere further down the slope, you're inviting that groundwater to reach the water table faster.
Okay. Good, thank you.
Let's just stop there for a
Yeah,
second.
go right
Give
ahead.
you a quick break. My comment 3.2 about load rating
Yes.
was really as a marker in case there was a swap out on the plans when they go to construction, right? Recognizing that you're using precast structures.
Right.
That's what we want to see in that location. So it's my marker to make sure as we go to construction, they don't become ADS plastic, non-loaded structures based on a contractor's swap out with the owner. For 3.1, the access easement, I didn't put it into my comments, but I thought about it as we were discussing the evolution of how that came to be. Is there a deed description to it, or is it just a Murphy's and Hollows special on the file map?
I haven't been able to find I actually thought I found an easement and then just
From
looked
the
at it.
2007 plans.
It was all the way back from
No, it's 1985 plans.
1986.
That's
No, it was 1986.
similar to the Chestnut Run drainage easements.
Actually-
So I thought I found an easement in favor of the township for this entire
That's-
tract, but then it turned out Chris looked at it more carefully.
Yeah.
The actual meets and bounds, and realized that it was just for.
There's a,
lot.
right here on the corner of lot
A drainage easement.
103, there's a drainage easement, and that was filed.
Okay. So
So they did file easements, just not that one.
So I guess it's a question both to the attorney and the engineer. In your research, would you say there's anything that's prohibitive to this easement being to all parties for access and maintenance of their lots?
I don't think so, since the map is filed, albeit without any verbiage to go along with it, but it clearly delineates, where the path of the easement is. These lots were created by this map, so they're certainly bound by it. So in a perfect world, there probably should have been some easement, and maybe there is, and we just haven't been able to find it yet, since the other one exists.
But we understand it to be an easement, cross-access and maintenance between all the lots of 1985 subdivision.
Yes.
Right, so there's no issue with this applicant then accessing for the purpose of maintaining his structures.
Not that I can see.
Okay,
I would agree with
go
that.
ahead. Proceed.
All right, and then I think finally to point out is there are a number of walls that are proposed as part of the development. There is one wall located to the south of the driveway as you're entering in, which does have a 30-inch tall wood guide rail on it. There is a wall located on the north side of the driveway, between the driveway and the right-of-way, which extends and then connects back into the rear of the garage. And then finally, there's a wall that comes from the corner of the garage, the southwest corner of the garage, wrapping around the driveway and then coming back into the house. And those walls all exceed the 4 foot for the front, which would be the wall on the north side of the driveway, and the 6 foot for the side and rear, which would be the other two walls' height restrictions that are in your ordinance. I'm going to stop there on engineering.
Let me ask you a question before you stop. Can you address the conservation zone issue that was raised by the board professionals?
I was going to do that as part of planning, but I can do that here as well.
Clarify it from
Sure.
an engineering perspective.
Sure.
To what degree do we anticipate violating that? It has to do, as I understand it, really with removal of trees and that sort of thing, not just disturbance in general, but you can tell me if I'm wrong, and if so, to what degree that we're in violation of it in the first place, that we need variance relief.
So as I understand the reading of it, the conservation easement, and I actually think it's written out, all properties with frontage on roads as designated on the zoning map, which this road is on the zoning map, so designated, shall provide a 75-foot wide conservation easement along said road in which no existing vegetation shall be disturbed except as needed for site access site triangles, or any other purpose deemed necessary by the approving authority, which would be you. There are a couple of trees that are proposed to be removed within that 75 feet. You have 2 below the garage, you have 1 under the driveway, and we have 3 in the rear here, which are helping to effectuate the installation and the construction of the house and the septic system. So we are obviously disturbing within the first 75 feet and building structures within the first 75 feet. I would say that if you look at every other house along the road, they're all right up in that same, built in that same way as what we are proposing. It's a little bit more planning, but we are,
Even though I have no objection, in fact, would ask that the board, if approving this application in general, approve this variance. In your professional opinion, are we actually violating it, or are we only removing trees when necessary for the reasons included in this definition?
well, it says for access and site distance. And again, the ones under the house are not for access. The one under the garage, the 2 under the garage, I wouldn't say are necessarily for access. So I think there would be relief required here.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair.
Then what I would suggest is we keep things compartmentalized.
Yep.
And I have nothing further for Mr. Nusser on engineering. I guess that we
Can I-
stick with engineering for now, all of us.
Can I just get a quick clarification? The retaining wall heights, can you just list those for us, locations and heights of them again?
Yes, absolutely. So the front retaining wall, which is the one to the north of the driveway, between the driveway and the right-of-way line, is proposed at 7.22 feet.
Time out, I thought Mr. Zilli said at the beginning 7.22 wasn't accurate. You were changing the height of that? No?
If
That's
the wall
not,
that
that's
needs
not the
guard,
wall.
might be different wall.
That's a different
It's a
wall.
different
I
Okay.
might have missed
Yeah,
one.
it's
no
the
problem.
other, it's the
It's
other
the
two.
wall.
Okay.
So on the wall on the entrance to the driveway here, which is under the side and rear yard, so the standard is 6 feet, that wall is 7.59 feet. However, with the 30-inch tall rail, brings it to 10.09 feet.
10.09?
10.09.
Okay.
And then the wall between the garage and the house on the south side of the driveway is 6.44 feet. We don't show a rail on it, but we should show a rail on it.
Yeah, let's just go
So,
with it.
yeah. So that, instead of 6.44 feet, should be an 8.94 foot relief request
Mr.
to
Nusser,
accommodate
How high a rail are you talking about now?
30-inch. So it's a 2.5 foot high wood rail, so it's just,
So that's a vehicular guardrail that you're speaking?
yes.
Would it be prudent to ask this board to allow something higher in the event you talked about the basketball scenario, so we don't have a human being falling off? 2.5 foot is not going to prevent that. Correct?
Yeah, I think at that
Yeah.
point, we're 6.5 feet above ground, so we need a 42-inch rail. Like if it's a deck, it would be 42-inch. So that'd bring us to 9.54.
I think that's safer.
So we would have, this wall would be 9.54, this would be 10.09, the wall by the entrance, and then the final wall would be 7.22. And that's located more towards the end of the driveway and where the shed is.
Understood.
Not the shed, sorry, the garage.
So we'll have a 30-inch tall guide rail at the garage wall, along with, would you do it as a higher guide rail or as essentially a fence?
I think we'd have to discuss how we do it.
But it could be to the height of the 40.
It would be, yeah, we would provide something that would be full protection
Full fall protection.
to be 42 inches in height, and then in front of it, some sort of vehicular barrier.
Right, to prevent any impact
Right.
damage.
Because the rail itself would be climbable
Yes.
by any child. Is my kids would probably jump off it immediately. First thing they would go to, yes, every time. Oh, I did want to give I
Sleigh riding
think
in his
one
house.
one thing about the size of the garage. I think you had a question about is it enough space and is there room? I have a pickup truck, not a full-size pickup truck, but it's 19 feet long, and I fit it in my garage in a spot that's 20 feet long. It's tight.
She lived in Hoboken too.
Never actually, but
I'm just kidding.
but in so that's in a 20-foot space. I have it in there. I just redid the reorganization in my garage. My wife, God bless her, let me do it. So
That microphone's turning red. I think it needs new batteries.
Already? Okay.
Yeah, already.
You have to pass the hat?
no, it's not quite dead yet.
Yeah.
So I would just say that I manage storage space within there, despite having my rather large truck within that space.
You said that's 20 feet, and we're looking at 24 depth.
Right, we have 4 more feet of depth in there, which is
You keep all your home maintenance stuff in there too, and athletic equipment, bikes, the whole
yes,
deal.
yeah. So, I mean, there's space within there to fit, especially you get that extra 4 feet. There's more than enough room to fit all that equipment within
And
there.
then the circulation outside of the garage for parking.
It works.
Turn around and
We
everything.
hear it.
Yeah.
No, no, it
There's
doesn't.
something wrong with this set of batteries. It's all right.
There's room to turn around within that space.
Sufficient room.
If you have your cars in the garage and then you have guests come over, the guests would have to move their car for you to be able to come out of the garage,
But
but
it's doable.
it's doable, yeah.
Turn around and pull out, everything.
Yeah, we certainly don't want anybody backing up that.
You got it.
How's the ingress and the egress from the end of the driveway onto the road?
So there's plenty of sight distance along the road. We're coming up and we're kind of the driveway from the neighboring lot here to the left. He actually comes over the property line, just a touch. So we're coming out right about at the same spot as where that comes out, and trying to get it as perpendicular as we can to the road. It's not perfectly perpendicular, but there's room in there to be able to make movement left, right, to come in.
And there's sufficient sight distance on the near side,
Yes,
traveling eastbound, that you can make the 90+ degree turn.
yes, yeah. I think that one of the concerns I had with the original location of the driveway, it was probably offset by about 15, by original, I mean the 2007 approved location of the driveway. It was probably about 15 feet off of Calson across the street there, and it just, the ability to have bad interactions is higher when you're that close and you don't have separation, so they, get it further away, push it down the road.
Okay.
Okay.
Question about the trees
Yeah,
that
okay.
you brought
Yes.
up. So it appears there are further back on the property about 9 trees you're removing. Is that correct?
That's,
Yeah.
yes, that's correct.
Why those 9 trees?
That's to support the installation of the septic field.
Okay.
And you may look at it and say, well, this guy's pretty far away. Why don't you leave him alone? The problem is the way the code reads, the septic code, you go from the drip line of the tree, and you got to keep 10 feet off of the field, because the drip line is where the roots are, and you don't want the roots to be in the system. They'll just clog it up and lead for it to fail. So, unfortunately, those trees would have to be removed, but we did our best to limit the impacts.
How many trees in total are you removing?
15
Okay, thank you.
total.
Yeah.
And that's to accommodate the garage and the house,
Garage, the house, the driveway.
like driveway, okay.
Yeah.
So those are, upon necessity, you have to do those.
Yes, and like I said, and I was going to get into it a little bit more in the planning testimony, but again, I think I said it already once, that kind of the goal here was to keep it compact, to limit those impacts, not step out with walls off of the house where you'd need to do more tree removal, you'd have more impacts. So just trying to keep it condensed and keep the number of trees that have to go to a minimum.
Sorry, can I go back to the walls?
Yes.
Just want to make sure that our engineer, Joe, you're satisfied with fences and protection on all retaining walls? Is that there's no fall hazards?
Yeah, so down the slope of the driveway entering, that wall will have the guide rail protection. And then at the level area of the driveway nearest the garage, it would be a combination of a guide rail and then fall protection.
Okay, so one is to prevent cars from going over the side?
Both will
That's
have car.
Load, that'll handle, like you said, will handle a load of the vehicle or whatever it is.
Yeah. So,
And then the other one's for like you said, like your own children might be attracted to that
Yeah.
line, certainly, right? So,
Wouldn't
by
might,
code.
wouldn't might, definitely would.
yeah, definitely would. By code, those walls will require fall protection, so to get through construction permits.
okay.
They'll need fall protection on this one wall.
What's
Then
the height that requires the protection? I'm just curious.
I think it's over 30 inches.
Oh, okay.
You need to have
Grading?
shorter rail, and then
over the
over
4 foot.
4.5, you need to go to the 3.5 foot rail.
Okay.
So that'll also come out, that'll also flush out in the code permit
Construction
review.
code?
Yes.
Okay.
The guide rails, right, they're called guide rails for a reason. They are to
Not
guide a
guardrails?
vehicle. Yeah, they are not guardrails, they are guide rails. And so they are never intended to prevent a car from, or any impact from exceeding through them. But they are a preventative measure, best we can put. So then, as part of my comment regarding the stability calculations for those walls.
Yeah, and we
I
would
just
provide.
noted that there will be an assessment of a reasonable impact to those walls to make sure that if they are struck, the wall integrity is not compromised by, a car careening off of them.
Okay, thank you.
Do we,
Any more questions for the engineer about engineering? Yeah, are you done with your questions?
I'm good.
Okay. Remember that, before you go, we had a member of the public, obviously going to ask you, who lives downhill.
Yes.
The water runoff issue, are you confident saying that you're going to make it better than it is in natural condition, the condition?
I would say it's always a very tough thing to ask somebody to say that you're going to make it better.
You're not going to make it worse.
Certainly not going to make it worse. We are taking steps to, as I said, mitigate it. I think the permeability of the soils that I've seen based on the testing, that it will work better than really what the minimum is that the ordinance is looking for. The size of the system is more than the minimum, not terribly, higher than what the minimum is. I think
So you're essentially catching all the runoff water from the structures you're putting on that property. Anything south of those structures is going to be natural runoff that would have been there anyway.
that's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
What happens to the water that falls from the sky or comes off of Long Hill Road where the garage is, or where the garage is proposed, or the driveway is proposed, or the house is proposed right now? What happens to that water?
Right now, anything that hits Long Hill Road, there's it's curbed, so it's running west on this page down, and continues on and either goes down the driveway of lot 1 to the west, or would continue down Long Hill Road to whatever the next inlet is or place for it to go down. The area between the garage and the road, it's a pretty small area that would ultimately get collected
What's
through.
happening right now? The
Oh,
existing
right now?
conditions, before you put a garage, before you put a driveway, before
It's
you
just
put a
coming
house,
straight down the hill.
runs down the hill,
Yes,
as expected.
yes,
Okay. And
So-
then you're proposing to capture some of that
yes,
and mitigate that.
correct.
So would it improve the situation then?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I think one of the things to look at is with anytime you have water runoff, it's not just the volume of the water, it's the rate of the water, it's how quickly it gets there. And the longer you can give it to go through space, the more likely it is to go into the ground and get absorbed. And so we're cutting off water at the top and slowing that down so you're not getting a rush over top of what is going on otherwise. So you're cutting off that whole upper portion of it.
When you did your testing, your soil testing, it was for the pillars and pilings that you were going to put in. That wasn't, you just didn't hit rock or shale. I mean, you actually said you had a sandy type of soil.
They had a sandy, I mean, it did, further down, it did change into like a siltier sand at a little bit more depth. But, you know, up in that upper area, it was sandy, which was consistent with what the soil logs for the septic were as well.
So just, you mentioned on Jerry's question about when the current situation, the water on Long Hill Road runs to the west down, and then eventually it meets a point at the neighbor lot 1, their driveway, it will run down, it currently runs down their driveway, because I assume their driveway is sloped as well. So the water from Long Hill runs past this for the most part because it's curbed, and then to a place where there is no curb, right?
And to be
I mean, most.
perfectly fair, memory serving me is, you know, I don't have that picture perfectly in my head of what the driveway is if they have a little hump at the beginning of their driveway to keep the water going down Long Hill Road. I would imagine that when they had it paved, I mean, if it was me when I was getting it paved, and granted I am the engineer, I'd be very particular to make sure that the water on Long Hill Road stayed there.
Okay, so is that the intent in building this driveway, to create something like a hump?
Yeah, we don't want the water to come.
Yeah, I know, that's why I'm
down.
asking.
Right, and come towards his lot and come towards the wall, you know, that's going in. So the idea would be to keep the water where it's going now, which is out on Long Hill Road.
So when we're talking about the coming off the driveway onto Long Hill Road, not only will there be a slope, a little bit of a upward
It's just
slope,
gonna-
there's gonna be
gonna be a little bump
bit
up,
of a bump as well.
Yeah, there'll just be a little bump right at the top of the driveway to keep the water out on the
Yeah,
road.
okay.
It looks like there's essentially a 401 contour running across from the existing edge of curb as you go then west towards the far side of the neighbor's driveway. So it's holding a constant elevation of gutter through there, but there isn't a pronounced hump because you'd be bucking up in grade then to then drop back down into a steep slope of the driveway. So it's a feathering when they get out there to build it.
Yeah, and I think that,
Talking like maybe 2 inches?
Yeah, because you got to be careful of getting a car with any normal sedan clearance. Forget the
Yeah,
specialty
scrape up,
vehicles
yeah.
getting through. You know, we don't have to get Ed's cars in there.
And the first
His old car.
You already
well,
got
I
it?
think, you know, part of it is the survey where they're taking shots is,
Yeah.
you know, they're not getting the super fine detail of it. But, you know, for us, yes, we don't want like a big curb on it. We don't want a big jump. Because then every bit we go up, we have to come back down too. So We want to keep that to a minimum, but we do want to get it enough up that it keeps the water going where it needs to go.
Since we are here, when the cold weather comes and the snow comes, and we've had 2 good winters and we've been lucky, but we're going to be hit with one sooner or later.
It's coming, yeah.
The incline, a regular sedan or even a truck, I'm not sure what you drive, sir, will be able to make that and get
He's
up
got
onto
it.
the road safely?
He's got a Hummer with tracks on it.
Cool, yeah. Brought that back from Afghanistan, did you?
Yes, yeah. I mean, 12.5% on a paved drive is very doable. I mean, it's not great, but it's not, terrible. I have a colleague who's got a driveway, somehow got built at 23%. And that's a little bit of a bear to get out of, when it snows or if it's icy.
Mhm.
10 to 15% is kind of the limit where you want it to be on a paved driveway. Which is why we tried to get it down to 12.5% to get as minimal as we can. We're trying to cut that slope down, noting that exact situation. There's a reason the guardrail's set about 2 feet back from the driveway edge, so there's room for the snow to go.
Yeah.
When you clear it, that there's a place for it to be, so you don't have it then coming into the driveway. So, yes, 12.5% is manageable slope for winter, for weather.
Thank you very much. And when I drive along Long Hill Road and I see some of those driveways, I'm like, ooh,
Yeah,
I guess you're taking the week off.
Yeah.
He does work from home on days like that, my colleague.
Okay, any other questions from board members?
Oh, can I just
Sure.
just for clarity, the dry wells that you're proposing are some in excess of what is required by code?
Yes, I think the way the
3.6.
Yeah. So in the engineering memo number 3.6, the required per the township's calculation would be 29.54 feet of height of dry well, and we are 32.
Okay,
So-
thank you. Thanks.
Okay, does,
I have one question, Mr. Chairman. Are you guys going to be complying with, just because we're on engineering, Mr. Voich's memo dated August 30th, 2024, all the conditions in there?
Thank you.
Rating the dry wells for H-20, submit
Yeah,
details, all this
we
stuff.
didn't take exception to anything in there. The only thing I would ask would be the testing, since we did do some testing, if we could do maybe confirmatory at the time of installation, just the sheer fact of getting a piece of equipment down here, just to confirm.
Yeah, do we
I can provide some documentation.
documents
support-
on the prior? Obviously, you
Yeah.
can't certify them because they weren't done by you or your
Right.
associates.
Right.
But
I can
yeah.
say, I can provide you a letter saying I've reviewed this information and that
Yep,
would
and
provide.
then, and with that, the condition could be loosened to at the time of construction. We provide inspection for your contractor. So we do that on lock rating permits and others. So knowing that there's confirmation behind the 20-foot test pit that was done in that location,
Yeah.
that I can inspect at the time of installation, just to observe that there's no groundwater. And we could,
is that acceptable? Okay.
We're talking about comment 3.8 with the soil
yeah, that would be
logs?
3.8.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, Joe, what are you suggesting as an alternative?
The submission of prior logs by other engineers
Okay.
for verification of the testimony, in combination with my inspection at time of installation. And
Read that last part one more time.
my inspection at time of installation.
Your inspection?
Just
Well, township engineer's inspection?
Yeah.
Yeah, township engineer as opposed to board engineers.
Yeah.
Inspection. In case there were to be a political wind that changed.
Oh, okay. Okay. On that point, Liz, do you want to wait to get to your memo until it's planning testimony?
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
yes, because I want to, the member of the public, do
Yeah.
you still have a question for this witness? Yeah, we'll stand up and come on up and ask it. Just identify yourself again for the record.
Yeah, Gene Smith, 205 Mountain Avenue in Gillette.
Thank you. So Go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, so, I know.
Stand closer to the mic so we can
Okay,
hear
yes,
you.
I'm sorry. Just to let you know my background, I'm the lot to the southwest of on the south side. And before Golden developed those properties, I've lived there since 1976.
Sir.
I've never had a flood.
I'm very sorry. It's got to be questions, otherwise I have to swear you in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a question? Or is this background?
I know,
to
it's
your
just a
question?
little bit of background's okay, but you
Yeah,
know,
a little background is okay,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
don't
Just don't get
testify.
too deep.
Yeah, I'm going to
into
get to the question, yeah.
Okay.
All right, once he developed the property, and the curb you were talking about on Long Hill Road was a big issue because he developed it from his house all the way to the furthest west one. That dumped water down, I spent tens of thousands of dollars in remedial work to divert that water. Catch basins, French drains, pipe work.
Just to be safe, why don't we go ahead?
I
Yeah.
was going to do a
Yeah.
post
We were-
facto,
yeah.
Mr. Zelli, but yeah.
Go ahead.
Sir, I got to
We're
swear.
going to swear you in.
All right,
I need your raise your right hand. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yes, I do.
Please proceed.
So now you can give us more background and then ask your question.
Okay.
You got to do that legally.
So I understand that, you know, engineering is a, you know, there's a design, there's an implementation, and then there's maintenance, which is a problem. I spoke to the town after that flooding started. I had 15 years, I tried to get the town engineer and the county to do something about it. Nothing was done. So I had to spend all that money and try to continue to divert the water, damaging my property extensively and flooding it. Then they finally came and put an easement down on the other side of what would be his property, Mr. Call's property, Mr. Henry's property. And they said they were going to improve my swale and 2-foot retaining wall by putting this drainage pipe in from Long Hill Road, which catches where the break is in the curb, catches that in a storm drain and takes it down the easement to Mountain Avenue. So in order to eliminate my swale that was 2 foot deep and my bulkhead that kept the water from coming finally over, they put a swale in only 1 foot and 2 drains in. And here's my point about all this drainage. The drains clog, and nobody maintains them. So in this case, you have these 4 dry wells. As soon as the gutters clog on Mr. Henry's house, who's gonna deal with the runoff?
So we glossed over some of the things within the engineer's memo, because I just said.
Get closer
we
to the
agreed.
mic. Get
Sorry.
closer to the mic.
We glossed over some of the things in the engineer's memo, because I just said, yes, we agree to that. But that includes, I think, the original application, sorry, not the original application, the 2007 application, again, for background. They were required to put in gutter guards, but now the township doesn't allow you to just put in gutter guards. You have to have like the cap covers on it, so the leaves don't get in and don't clog it, because even the gutter guards just give you another spot where you're cleaning out the mess. They don't really ever solve it.
Got a helmet.
The helmets, thank you. Just gonna go searching in the memo for it.
Got it.
Appreciate it. So you have the gutter helmets on there to keep the debris out of the gutters. There's maintenance requirements that the applicant will have to make sure that the systems aren't getting clogged up. So there are procedures in place. The world's a much different place than 1986. The township engineer, the board engineer, when he puts his other hat on and becomes township engineer, they inspect this when this goes in to ensure conformity with the plans, that the dry wells actually go in, that the gutter helmets are actually installed. So there's checks and balances on it. And a little bit more is done to address those issues, because you wouldn't be the only person to have that problem. There's a reason that the township has changed the rules as time's progressed to react to those different situations, to make sure that these systems that they're requiring are doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, but I see them, I see them mostly not doing what they're required to do. Right now, the drain on the Mountain Avenue side is clogged from that drainage that we were just talking about. So,
Can I ask you a question?
yes,
Is yours the one that was done like recent times, like 5 or 6 years ago?
yes,
It is, the township funded that.
Right, right, and then they bought the easement next from,
Right, and
next
it's
door.
already clogged, I mean, it's
Yep.
already.
Well, the drain is totally blocked,
And the
so,
town's not addressing that if you call them?
well, who's supposed to maintain that?
Call down the Public Works.
The DPWs.
Call, yeah.
They usually come around after the rain.
Because what's happening, like you said, you got a cover of leaves and debris over it. and-
There's mud,
Yeah.
it's filled with
But
mud.
correct me if I'm not mistaken, the dry wells aren't susceptible to that same clogging. Because they're
Right,
getting
so-
the water coming under and into them, except for the gutters potentially, but they don't have that same thing where the grate gets clogged.
Oh,
So-
I understand that, yeah, but I see gutter guards all the time that don't work, you know.
All those
with
gutter
amount-
helmets do work.
amount
I had
of-
them on my
yeah.
house, they actually
So-
do work.
Well, with all these trees, high trees that we have, I see them not working, and,
So the purpose of that section of our code is to specifically require pretreatment, right? To make sure that the infiltration systems are not then clogged. The pipes, the conveyance. So along with that, then it's items 3.9 and 3.10 in my letter. That, as well as then ensuring that the system is adequately maintained. As a minor development, I cannot impose the requirement of deed restricting maintenance like a major development can. But by having these conditions in my letter and then becoming compliance after the fact, they are then a code enforcement hook, for lack of a better term. If you were to have issues and downstream detriment on your property, come to the township engineer or the code enforcement official, and there is an opportunity for us to then inspect and issue a violation for maintenance if that maintenance is not being done. Specifically to cleaning the gutters and the devices that may have then accumulated, and also the dry well itself being inspected and then maintained.
because I also notice on his downspouts, they have a default outfall for if the downspout. if
Yeah,
it-
there will
if
be
it's clogged.
an overflow.
Right to
Well, it's not-
right to a splash block that would go right to my property.
So the overflow will still be there. And the requirement of the code is a 4-inch runoff from the attributable areas. So every impervious surface in this site is proposed to be captured and conveyed to the dry wells. There's roughly 108.5% or so over the required. So there's a couple vertical feet of additional factor safety built in. So in a storm that occurs within 4 inches of runoff, there's adequate capacity in the dry wells to hold that entirety of that storm over those improved areas. If there is 5, 6 or greater inch storms, the dry well is at capacity, and then the conveyance system up to those downspouts is at capacity. There will be an overflow at that location, and that is specifically permitted for the minor development. That is kind of the benchmark of the standard.
And are you designing 6-inch gutters or 4-inch or 5-inch?
I,
That's not your,
yeah, I don't.
Those would be spec'd at the time of construction permit.
Yeah,
because
that's not my
5-inch won't really do the job. And then in the driveway situation, I've been up there a number of times on Long Hill Road when it's heavy raining, and that 2-inch bump is not going to stop the water from going in this driveway. Is there going to be a catch basin in this driveway that will
No,
go?
there's no catch basin proposed.
Be ready for floods?
Would a catch basin perform adequately
Or
in
trench
that?
drain.
Well, the problem with any of that is there has to be a place to send it,
Okay.
and the place to send it has to be downhill, and the only place downhill is towards you.
Mm.
So, you know, I think we'll have to look and see what we can manage and what we can do about maybe making it a little bit taller to make sure that the water runs
Or a
back.
trench drain, you say won't work because you're afraid of where you got to send it?
Well, I have to
It
send
needs to
it,
connect into
I have to
something.
connect it to something.
Yeah.
And I can't put a trench drain in the right of way and then convey it down the street because it's the town's road. I
Yeah.
can't just start putting drainage in.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the discussion. Can you put a catch basin at the bottom of the driveway and then direct that into your?
We are doing
retention
that already.
pits That you're having?
We are doing that already.
So
That was my
so
question.
at the bottom.
Yeah, so,
There's a
Yeah.
catch basin at the bottom of the driveway that goes into the retention pits?
Correct.
Oh, there.
Okay.
The trench drain, yeah. So everything that comes down the driveway
Will
will make
get
it
caught.
to that system.
Oh, okay, so
I
there
think
is something.
The
there.
concern would be that
Will
that
hold
that system
Yeah,
is
it's-
sized,
Oh, okay.
it's graded to come in.
right, that system is sized for the impervious area of the two roofs and the driveway.
So you're
And the
directing the
concern
water
here
toward the
is
garage.
additional, well, the
It
concern
comes-
here is municipal runoff in the right-of-way entering through the curb cut.
Okay,
So the only way, point of capture would be at the mouth of the driveway.
right, but it's all the water's directed toward that area by the slope of the driveway.
Everything on-site,
Right, on
all the
site.
impervious on-site's collected on-site.
Yeah, but anything that comes on from the street is also gonna be directed down.
It gets directed there, but it's not sized for,
It wouldn't be
it's not
sized.
sized for the 50-foot of the
You
right-of-way
have a lip
up
of the curb too, right?
the hill.
Didn't you say that earlier? That there's a little bit of a curb?
Well, what I'm saying is when we install it, we would install it with a lip and.
The driveway.
And, yeah, and
Yeah.
Not the
the
road,
point,
where it
the
meets
point
the road.
was that 2 inches isn't really gonna cut.
Right. But
So-
something.
Right, so if we can, again, same thing, the higher we can go, the better, but there's a limitation to,
Can you put a pipe under the driveway where it meets the road?
well, again, the problem is where does it, how does the water get in there and where does it go?
Just keeps going.
Yeah, but it's gonna be, it'll be at subgrade level.
Right, so it really would.
So the only way would be to
Trench.
basically construct an upgradient basin and then convey down Long Hill to the next available storm sewer, which would be essentially the length of the neighbor's property. It'd be off-track improvements that are not
Yeah, not a,
not a trigger point of minor development. Then we're talking about off-track improvements that are more equatable to major development
major
standards.
development, right, multi-house.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. You have
Or
another
if somebody
question?
was subdividing and building multiple.
Yeah, question with general engineering, I know I think of this, it doesn't bother me so much, but they've had to deal with it with Mountain Avenue. They get a discharge on that sand layer, and I don't know which sand layer you're going to. There's like a 2-inch to 4-inch layer of sand, like a sheet, and it carries the water out onto Mountain Avenue. That's why they get that slick spot in the bend all the time. And if that's charged more with this, that might only make that worse. You know, they tried to do that with a French drain years ago. It doesn't really solve the problem, so. I don't know if that's the sand layer that's gonna be charged by these
Oh, so
dry wells.
there's something that was put in to direct the water around.
No, I think it's you're saying it's the natural,
Yeah, that's the natural, yeah, you might charge that.
part of the
more so.
glacial overburden,
Yeah.
essentially over
In
the
other words,
rock
you're gonna
on the
take
hill.
what hits the surface now and put it right into
Yeah,
that
it's-
sand layer.
it's
It's
the-
gonna shoot out there.
The natural daylighting of the groundwater at topography.
And there'd be no more water falling from the sky, so it would be no more water, other than there's a bit running off, but,
Well,
yeah,
that-
maybe there's a little bit more going into the ground, but
Well,
that means it's not running off.
That discharge usually happens days after it rains. And it just, as the ground weeps, it comes out on the road.
Gotcha.
So, I think that charging it more so by, not just what permeated naturally, but now you're sending it right to that layer. It might just be a consideration for them to think about.
Any other questions for the
No,
engineer?
I think that's good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, are you done with your engineering aspect of it?
I am,
Can we take a 5-minute break?
certainly can.
Mr. Chairman, real quick,
The
the other gentleman in the
Oh,
public.
yes. Do you have any questions of the engineer? Okay.
Mr. Chair.
You'll have questions with your planner or as a?
5 minutes would make,
Oh, okay.
And if we
5
take
minutes
5
will
minutes,
bring us to 10:30.
Oh, that's right.
yeah,
I didn't realize it was so late.
yes.
I can be very expeditious in my testimony.
All right, then we're not gonna take a break. I was not even realizing the
Want
time.
to
Thank
extend
you.
it? then?
Yeah, we should probably give
Yeah,
another
all right.
10
Do I
right
hear a
now.
motion to extend to 11:15?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We're extending to 11:15. All right, be quick.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Speaking
Yeah.
as a planner now, hat turned. So again, we have, I'm just going to reiterate the relief. We have a D6 variance for the building height where two-story 35 feet is required. We are two-story 55.12 feet proposed. So we exceed by more than 10 feet or 10%, both in this case. We have bulk relief for the front yard, which is proposed at 7.99 feet, where 35 was allowed per the subdivision and 75 is required by zone. The accessory front yard is 75 feet required, same as the front yard. 11.26 is proposed, and it is also located in front of the principal building, which is relief.
35 or 75?
75.
For the original stuff.
Well, it's 75 per the zone. There is relief for the critical area. I was going to make a point, but maybe we'll just skip it in here. One is construction in a critical area, because we are building within a critical area, because the whole lot is a critical area. Number two is minimum contiguous non-critical land. I don't believe that actually applies because it's lots created after the date of the ordinance. That ordinance was from 2006, and the lot was from 1986. So that shouldn't apply, but here nor there. We seek the relief if necessary. Maximum coverage in non-critical land, where that number is 70%. Again, if I wanted to be pedantic about it, we actually don't have any non-critical land, so we don't exceed the 70%, but it was relief that was previously granted in 2007, so we seek that as well.
Wait, can I stop you right there? I thought the entire lot was critical land.
Yes, it is. So there is no non-critical area on the lot, so the 70% coverage limit is 70% coverage of the non-critical land. I don't have any
I would seek the variance.
Yeah, we're just seeking the
Yeah,
variance.
just seek the variance. Yeah.
What he just explained is a
Seek and you shall find.
complicated way to say he's gonna make a C1 for that, not a C2 for that.
That's right.
Thank you.
I'm trying to be not complicated about it, but I'm failing, I see. Critical area setbacks, where front and rear, you need to be 50 feet from a critical area, and side, you need to be 25. Obviously, whole lot is critical area. The maximum retaining wall heights, as we talked about. Front yard, where 4 is required, 7.22 proposed. The side yard, side and rear, where 6 foot is required, we are 10.09 for the one at the entrance driveway, and the one between the house and the garage, 9.54 feet. And then for not providing the 75-foot wide conservation easement. Now I will stay on script, and I have one page to read, so we should be, like I said, fairly expeditious. The standard for the D6 is whether the site can accommodate the problems associated with the increase in height. As was found in the prior application, while not binding, that while tall in the rear elevation, it would not be especially visible to neighboring owners to the rear, and would have a low profile along the street frontage. Again, the purpose of having height restrictions is to maintain, especially in residential neighborhoods, your frontages, to make sure all the houses look uniform as you go down the street. This application does that. We do meet the same basic profile of the houses along the street. We're not overly tall. We're actually probably shorter than most of the houses going along the street as viewed from the road. The main issue here, again, is because of the slopes on the property. So the lot obviously can handle the problems associated with the increase in height. I think it's a very clever way of constructing the house on piers so that it limits the disturbances on the property. There's no negative impacts on the public good, nor will it substantially impair the intent and purpose of your master plan, because we are consistent with the other adjacent homes, not just on the front elevation, but on the rear elevation, as the houses on either side of us are 4 stories on their rears as well. The bulk variances are all at least slightly hardships due to the topographic conditions on the property. The critical area relief, so building in a critical area, the critical area setbacks, and whether the other two apply or don't, as well as the retaining wall heights, are all clear C1 hardships because of the topography. The lot has no non-critical areas. And as I said before, it has an average slope of 3-to-1 front to rear, so it's not possible to comply. Retaining walls have to be built to be able to give a level area to put a car on it. And on a 3-to-1 slope being maximum permitted, the average is 3-to-1. The only way to accommodate that is with taller retaining walls. The remaining relief is a better zoning alternative driven by the topography. The placement of the structures and the lack of the conservation easement results actually in less disturbance of the critical slopes and of trees over alternatives, such as the prior alternative. This advances several purposes of zoning, namely A, the general welfare by having less impervious, less potential erosion from less disturbance, and I, to provide a desirable visual environment, because again, we're doing this so that we're consistent with the other homes in the area. As I mentioned earlier, where the house is being placed, although it is forward of the 75 feet that's required, it's consistent with the other houses that were constructed along the road, so you'll have a consistency with that. The only house that's slightly south downslope is actually the property to the east, and the reason for that is because he has the access easement that comes through his property, so he can't build in front of it, so he's building just behind it, which is why he's slightly further south. I looked away and I lost my place. No, actually, I just went right to it. And again, with these bulk variances, there continues to be no negative impact on the public good or substantial impairments to the intent and purpose of the master plan. The master plan would want consistency in the development of the homes along the road, which this does. It would want to preserve critical areas to the maximum extent practicable, which this application also does do. On the whole, we understand this is a very difficult lot to develop. However, it's my opinion that the application presented by you is well thought out to address the concerns of stormwater management from the neighbors, construction concerns, again, limiting impacts to the maximum extent practicable while providing a usable lot, not just to the minimum, but something that's usable for not just this applicant, but anybody who would own the home in the future. So I think it's my opinion that these variances can be granted by the board, again, without any negative impacts.
Any questions from our planner?
No, I would agree with the applicant's planner, engineer. I think the board could potentially look at all of the variances, aside from the D6 height variance, as a C1 hardship variance. This is a very difficult site. A lot of, if they were to, they have to have a garage per the ordinance, so that creates issues. But they have to have the garage, so that triggers variances. There are things where, you have to have the house closer, because if you didn't, then you'd be, as was testified to way earlier on, you're doing 100-foot drop over the length, I guess, of the lot, right?
Yeah.
So there are certainly a very difficult site to work with. So I think, as a C1 variant, I know the applicant indicated that there were sort of C2s driven by topography, but I think you could probably say all of it was C1, because this is just such a difficult site. I do have some other questions, very quickly, unrelated to the proofs, but just some couple things I forgot to ask initially. And one is that I know the potential owner was saying that he may have some mechanical HVAC equipment if that is the case, will it be screened?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
When you, I guess, do compliance plans, I guess, I had something in here about how to just denote the areas of the steep slopes and the acreages.
Well, and I saw that, and the reason that we didn't put that on there was because it's just the whole thing's over 15%.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at that 10-foot
Okay.
rise set, so it's everything. So I didn't do the normal shading
Yeah.
because
I think it's worth it. I think it's worth doing it, just to put it on, just do a table the way you have done in other applications. Then I wanted to ask, and I should have asked, Mr. Henry, what will be, or what are you proposing for the materials and the colors of the house? Because I know you presented a garage, which was just sort of
Generic.
generic, thank you.
Yeah, they would be. Is this?
Yeah, it's on.
Should be.
They would be fairly tame earth tones, vertical planks. It's nothing too crazy.
Okay. And would the garage match the main house?
The garage would match the house.
Okay. And then one question I had, just, I'll be very quick with this, but, the conservation easement, I think, is to sort of protect or, preserve that sort of bucolic view down Long Hill Road. For all the reasons we've already talked about, it's very difficult to place the building or any of the buildings on site further back. But you don't, on any of what I've seen so far, you haven't proposed any landscaping along Long Hill Road. And I understand that there is a retaining wall there, you've got your garage, you've got the driveway.
Right.
Is there a potential for some
Greenery.
plantings? Yeah. It's particularly because there is a retaining wall.
yeah, there certainly is. I mean, we just didn't go into a single-family house. Not something we typically put landscaping on like
Would you
this
be
plan.
amenable to, on your compliance plans, putting
Yes.
some
Yes.
landscaping along there?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Any questions from the board about the plan aspect?
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Liz, for the landscaping out front, would that need to be in accordance with section 153, or are we doing something separate that wouldn't be fully up to the ordinances?
My reading of 153 was that it's not really geared towards single-family residential.
streets.
And it would just be something we
Okay.
would,
So landscaping subject to the review and approval
I
of the
think
planner.
that's the best way to
Yeah.
do
Okay.
it,
Or then
yes.
delegate it to our planner? Is that what you
Yeah.
Yes, to the planner and the engineer, I think, just because,
Professionals.
yes, species, yes, in
yeah,
terms of,
totally
okay.
fine with that.
Okay. Any questions from the board about the planning testimony? Okay.
And just one question on that, Liz, obviously, you're thinking screening and protection from the wall and everything else, is that what you're looking at?
That's right, because
Softening the look.
you don't want to be looking at a retaining wall necessarily, so is any landscaping that can sort of pretend, whatever it is, low shrubs, anything.
Okay.
From the roadside, you are not looking at that retaining wall, though, because it's retaining the other way.
It's down, oh.
Yeah, it's retaining the driveway, not the road.
No,
Yeah.
well then, I'm a little.
So put it at
confused.
the base of whatever retaining wall on the other
Well,
side.
but then it would be,
What
I mean,
am
it would just be
looking
into
at
the
here?
driveway for.
What is this?
Okay.
That wall?
Yeah, that wall. What
Yeah,
is,
but the top of that wall is
This,
is below the,
Street level.
the street level?
yeah,
Okay.
from the street, you're looking at the tops of every wall.
Okay,
But, if there's granted, we have the garage.
The side of the
11
garage.
It's 11 feet up, so, putting some shrubbery in there would soften the view of the.
Yes, of the
yeah,
side of the
and I think
that's-
it would be an attempt to meet the intent of the conservation easement, which obviously
I
is
mean, it's,
difficult to meet. Yeah,
Curb appeal.
yeah.
So to buffer the view of the buildings is really what
and
I
quite
think we're
frankly.
just talking about what you see walking,
General
Just
going
as
down the
you're- yeah.
road. You want to see some more vegetation.
I think everybody wins on that because, again, you have a road coming in, so you're gonna want some shrubs and you're gonna want
Yeah.
some stuff in there
It'll
to,
also absorb some water, right? I mean,
Right,
some-
you would also.
it'll pick up some of the water
Right.
and it'll block headlights
Right, from
coming in the
coming in.
windows at
yeah.
night, so.
Okay. Taking, we have no other questions from the board. Fred, would you like to, oh, yes. Does any member of the public wish to make comments or questions? Closing it to the public then. Are you done with your testimony?
I'm done.
Okay. Mr. Zelli, would you like to have any comments?
One of the benefits of having a planner is I don't need to sum up because you just did it.
Okay, fine.
Rely upon our planner's testimony. We thank you for staying with us this evening.
Okay,
We would appreciate a positive vote.
okay. Would you,
Do a summary.
yeah.
I got you, Mr. Chairman. Okay. As always, I'll make the disclaimer if I get anything wrong, or, everyone feel free to jump in and correct me as needed, if needed, hopefully not. Okay, so the applicant here is seeking a D6 height variance to permit the proposed dwelling to stand at a height of 55.12 feet as measured from its rear elevation, whereas the maximum permitted principal dwelling height in the R2 zone is 35 feet. That's our D6. Number of bulks, starting with principal dwelling front yard setback, 75 feet is the minimum required. They're proposing 27.99. Accessory structure front yard setback, that's for the detached garage, minimum required is 75 feet. They're proposing 11.26 feet. The next is the location of the accessory structure relative to the principal dwelling. The ordinance requires that any accessory structure be to the rear of the front of a principal dwelling. They're proposing it to the front of the principal dwelling here. Next is for the location of structures within critical steep slope areas. As you heard from the testimony, the entire property is a critical area. The ordinance prohibits any location of any structures within a steep slope critical area, and they're essentially proposing to locate all structures in such an area. Next is for contiguous non-critical land area with access to a public street for a lot with a septic system. Again, they can't comply with the 20,000 square foot minimum requirement here because the entire property is a critical area. Next, I'm probably going to need a little bit of help with this. This is the lot coverage within non-critical areas variance. What are you permitted, 70% maximum coverage? Liz, could you jump in and help me out here? I'm sorry.
Correct. They're permitted 70%, but I think what their argument was, we have 0% that's
Right.
not critical area, but I think they still should just seek the variance.
So you get it as
Yeah.
a cleanup,
So
right?
70% in an area that is non-critical.
Non-critical, and
So in
so,
a critical area, they have no coverage. Like, you can't, there's no permitted coverage.
But we have no non-critical
Right.
areas.
Right.
In a critical area, there's no,
So it's-
you can't
it's kind
put
of-
any coverage.
It's really not applicable
Right.
because they don't exist, but I have no problem with listing the variance.
Okay.
And the C1
But yes,
improvement.
to your point, that was the first one in there is no doing anything in a non-critical
Nothing
area.
In the critical area.
Yeah.
Right.
Or sorry,
But
yeah,
70
nothing in
a
the critical area.
non-critical area.
right, it's the maximum coverage in the non-critical, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. All right, moving right along. Principal dwelling front and rear yard setback from a critical area. 50 feet is the minimum requirement from both sides. They're providing 0 feet. Principal dwelling side yard setback from a critical area. The minimum required here is 25 feet. Again, 0 feet is provided because the entire property is a critical area. Retaining wall height for the one located closest to the street in the front yard. The maximum permitted height there would be 4 feet. They're proposing 7.22 feet. Retaining wall height in a in a side and rear yard. This is the one that's on the eastern side of the property. The maximum permitted height here would be 6. They're proposing 9.54 feet. Same variance, but for the other retaining wall on the west side of the property, again, 6 feet is the maximum permitted. They're proposing 10.09 feet. And then finally, the last requested variance, the ordinance requires you to provide a 75-foot conservation easement from the right-of-way. They're not proposing to provide any such easement. Yeah, so that's that one. As far as conditions go, I believe they stipulated to everything in our board planner, Liz Lahany's memo dated August 29, 2024, with the exception of comment 8, which was that they would provide landscaping in accordance with section 153 of the ordinance. Instead, they've agreed to provide landscape screening subject to the review and approval of the board professionals. There's a little bit more leeway there. Next, they agreed to comply with all the conditions in board engineer Joe Voich's memo dated August 30th, 2024, with the exception of 3.8. That was with the permit logs. Let me just go back to my notes because I wrote this down. Yeah, they would, instead of complying with 3.8, they're going to submit the prior logs that were provided by other engineering firms, and in conjunction, the Township Engineering Department will inspect the site at the time of construction. I got that right?
Yep.
Wow, okay. Wow, I'm impressed with myself. So that's it for the memos. There were a few other conditions I picked up during the hearing. First is that they would revise the plans to show the correct locations of the piers that are supposed to support the proposed dwelling. I'm sorry?
You also mentioned topographical. You want-
Right, just in the,
Okay.
within the compliance plans that, that they be clear with the, even though it's 100% critical area, still think it should be shown in a
Oh,
chart.
was that in your memo, Liz?
Yes.
It wasn't your memo. Okay, so it's
Yes, yeah.
encapsulated. Okay, I got it. Another couple things. Bear with me. Got that one already.
Any mechanical equipment will be appropriately screened.
Green.
In Liz's memo.
Oh, it's in
Already
the-
covered.
Oh, it's already in the memo.
Yep.
It's in there.
Yeah. The only other
Even better.
The only one I picked up was that the exterior of the garage would match the exterior of the dwelling in terms of architectural appearance. And I think that's was testified to. So that's it. We need 5 votes, a motion second, and roll call, and then we need 5 votes yes for an approval, and then, it's because it's a D6 variance, you need to, the supermajority. So, I don't know, Mr. Zelli, we have 6. Do you want a straw poll, or do you want to throw it
The
in?
normal procedure is for people to make comments before the vote, and
Yeah.
if we just have an opportunity to
Sure.
either make or not request
You wanna feel it out.
vote after
Fine.
I've heard those comments. I'd appreciate
Okay.
it.
Okay, do I hear a motion to extend the meeting to 10 minutes to 11? Second. 5 minutes to 11, good, okay. Moved, so moved, okay. We're 5 minutes to 11. Okay, Jerry, would you like to start?
Sure, I'll
to,
start. First of all, as our planner pointed out, their planner pointed out, it's a very challenging situation here. I don't think there's anything you can do with the lot, as their attorney said. If we can't develop it, then it has to be purchased by someone. So, I mean, it's economically, I guess, not feasible to do that. So it has to be developed. I think that they came with a good plan, and they considered the environmental impact, and they tried to minimize that with the design of the building and the trees and the water collection. That was, I guess, mandated by our ordinance, but they still made a good effort, I think. I think they're doing the best they can with this. The height ordinance is a pet peeve of mine when it's violated in most instances, but in this, it's unavoidable. Anywhere you go on Long Hill Road on the south side, you have to violate the height ordinance to build a building. So they're challenged there. There's nothing they can do. It's the entire property is encumbered by critical area, and there's nothing they can do to avoid that. So they're, again, taking the steps they need to. I think they've made a great effort. They've satisfied, I think, all the requirements of our professionals and the board themselves. Does not impair our zoning plan or our master plan in any way. It's typical development. I don't love it, but there's nothing we can do about it. It has to go through. We have water concerns of the neighbor to the south. That's been there for a long time. We talked about that. That's the town and the residents down there have been arguing. I don't know what the solution is. Water goes downhill. They're trying to retain as much as they can. It's not ideal, but I think it's the only available solution for this property. And I'm in favor of it. It's that. I mean, begrudgingly, I'm for it. That's really where I'm going.
Thank you. Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, it's getting late, so I will agree with everything Jerry said, pretty much took my words, and I would say, it is difficult to build on this, and I wish Mr. Henry good luck on this, and I would be supportive of this application.
Jessica?
Yeah, I will not bury the lead. I'm also in favor of the application. I'll just add to what Jerry said. I think in terms of the D6, the site can absolutely accommodate the height variance, and to the point on the streetscape, there is no variation. So I don't see that as being, an issue, and there's really no detriment on the D6 in terms of the height. In terms of the C variances, I agree that these are all C1, that there is, you basically came to us, in my opinion, and obviously the opinion of the professionals here, with the best plan that you could present to make the property usable in a way that's not detrimental to either the zoning code or the neighborhood. And I think that the conditions that we've put on the plan, including the water management and mitigation, obviously, offset any detriment that could be expected from that. So I'm in favor of the application.
Meredith?
I'm going to echo the same sentiments of my fellow board members with what's been shared here this evening. I just wanted to make a comment too that, you had said that you had planned on building this structure as a home for yourself, which I certainly think makes a big difference too, is you want to make sure that what you're standing is a sturdy structure. You want to make sure that it's something that it's aesthetically pleasing to you and to the rest of the neighborhood. And certainly too, you want to build something that's going to be there for a long, long time. And I know that there's been some concern shared here about, water runoff, and I'm certainly don't think for a second that living on a slope that steep, you would want to go forward doing something that's going to stand for a long time and not be a detriment to the rest of the neighborhood. When I'd originally seen the application too, I'd seen the thing about the height and wow, that's such a big difference. But, seeing where the lot is, I drove by there earlier today, it's unavoidable, and it certainly makes sense too. So I approve of this application.
I too would agree. Go ahead. Forgot about you, sorry.
I'm glad Ed agrees. And I agree with Ed. Done.
I just want to say that thank you for your accommodations and the plans, and I personally think your catching of that water will actually solve some of that problem of going downhill, because you're actually putting in the dry wells, preventing the sheet runoff that you're getting now, or the just unfeathered runoff of the water downhill. So I'm hoping, for the sake of your southern neighbors, that it does help them. But I would also be in favor of it. So.
I have those comments. I am not requesting a delay.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second? Okay, roll call.
Okay, Vice Chairman Grosskopf.
Yes.
Ms. Brennan.
Yes.
Mr. Aronio.
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ms. Collins.
Yes.
Chairman Correct.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful night.
Welcome,
And we're 5 minutes early.
Congratulations.
Yeah, welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you for staying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Nice job. I was a no to start. 55 feet. What are you looking at this?
Need a motion to adjourn.
Good job. Nice layout. It's good. Motion
Need a
adjourned.
motion.
Yeah, second,
All in favor?
second, all in favor, aye.
Aye, aye, aye.